Chapter 3952. Hearing Zichen's words, Lan Gumeng smiled. As expected, Zichen would not leave them in the lurch. She immediately went to inquire about Gua village's location. However, that person looked at her with a strange gaze. He even kindly advised her. "Miss, don't go to that place. Too many people have been harmed there." Lan Gumeng thanked him for his kindness. When she returned, she told Zichen that they would have to take a detour. However, for them who were in the human soul realm, it was not a problem at all. Zichen looked at Wan He. If he did not want to take a detour, he could continue to head north. The three of them would be able to catch up very quickly. "I have nothing to do and it's quite boring. I'll accompany you to take a look." Wan He drove the carriage away from the town. The carriage started to move quickly, bringing up a cloud of smoke and causing curses to be heard from all around. Zichen and the other two followed behind at a moderate pace. When Zichen first came here from the Kata realm, Shanya and Noah only had a few dozen blue crystal coins on them. Moreover, they were already in the soul illusionary realm at that time. Even when Zichen came, they were still struggling to make ends meet for a period of time. From this, it could be seen that the bounty of 2,000 blue crystal coins was not a small amount. Even though many people had suffered because of it, there were still many people who went to hunt. Along the way, they encountered many small teams heading to Gua village. When they brushed past those people, Zichen clearly felt the hostile gazes from both sides. Gua village was not far from the town. When Zichen arrived, there were already dozens of people gathered here. They were in groups of 3 to 5. Some of them were gathered together as if they were negotiating with someone. Wan He stopped the carriage outside the small village. He did not alight from the carriage. Zichen and the other two walked forward. Those who came here were all for the bounty. All of them were martial artists. There were many horses around, but there was only one carriage. At this time, it was very conspicuous. "Why are there only 200 blue crystal coins? Are the people in your village more important, or are the blue crystal coins more important? There are still 2,000 blue crystal coins on the bounty outside the town. You only took 200. We came all the way here and even risked our lives to help you. Where is your sincerity? I think Gua village has too few casualties. You only have so many blue crystal coins in your village. Are you planning to kill more people?" When Zichen and the other two approached, they heard a dissatisfied voice coming from the front. "Please don't be offended, heroes. These 200 blue crystal coins are an extra reward to thank you for helping Gua village get rid of the evil. After killing the demonic beasts, the reward given by the mayor will still belong to the heroes." In front of the crowd stood an old man in his twilight years. He was just an ordinary person. Facing these soul hunters at this moment, he was under a lot of pressure. The old man took out a bag and opened it shakily. The unique brilliance of blue crystal coins was released. "This is what we collected from every household in Gua village. We are not rich, so this is all we have. Heroes, please help us get rid of the evil." The old man bowed deeply to the crowd. However, the crowd did not seem to appreciate it. Their eyes followed the movement of the blue crystal coins. Some of their expressions changed as they looked into the depths of Gua village. "If you want us to get rid of the evil, sure. Give us the 200 blue crystal coins first. We will do it," said the man in the lead. The people around him nodded in agreement. The old man seemed to be in a difficult position. The man continued, "If we don't have this much sincerity, how can we get rid of the evil? Or is it that there are too many people in your village and you don't care about dozens or hundreds of idiots?" A child quietly peeked out from behind the old man. His clear eyes were filled with terror. The old man patted the child's head gently, indicating that the child should not peek out. The man saw the child and smiled. "You look very cute. I wonder if you will be even cuter after becoming an idiot." The child hid behind the old man again. He was so scared that his body was trembling. He said in terror, "I don't want to become an idiot. Mom and Dad suddenly became idiots. They don't recognize me anymore. I don't want to become an idiot. Otherwise, there will be no one to take care of Mom and Dad. I don't want to become an idiot, but you won't pay. The other party sneered. Grandpa Village Chief said that you are heroes who get rid of evil for the people. The child cried. Of course we are heroes. But didn't your Grandpa Village Chief tell you that even heroes need to eat, drink, and defecate? Zichen looked at the child. It reminded him of the Kata realm. The child looked very much like little Liang Bao. He frowned slightly. These guys did not look like they were here to get rid of evil. They looked more like scourges. Lan Gu-meng could not stand it anymore. She walked forward. Just then, a voice suddenly sounded. Can you be more shameless? They are already like this. Why are you here to cheat money? Now you are going to destroy a child's hope. I want to ask you, where is your sense of shame? Who is it? Come out. The man's eyes turned cold. He immediately turned around. A middle-aged man walked out. He looked at the other party and said, What can I do for you? A wave of pressure spread out in all directions. Sensing this pressure, those people's faces changed. One of them cried out, Soul Void! It's the Lord of the Soul Void realm! The middle-aged man's eyes turned cold. Get lost! Everyone felt as if they had been pardoned. They immediately retreated, not daring to say a word. In the blink of an eye, the old man's side was empty. The middle-aged man came closer and squatted down. The child looked at the other party timidly. The middle-aged man smiled and said, Don't be afraid. There are heroes in this world. You have to believe that heroes will get rid of evil for the people. The child pursed his lips, looking a little wrong. The middle-aged man stretched out his hand and patted the child's head gently. They were not heroes earlier. They are the enemies of heroes. They are bad people. They need heroes to punish them. Do you understand? The child nodded and said, Yes, they are those sinister and cunning villains in the stories. They need heroes to defeat them. The middle-aged man laughed. But the others around could not laugh. Those people earlier had powerful backgrounds. This soul void realm that appeared out of nowhere might not be able to suppress them. The middle-aged man stood up and looked at the old man. Old man, put these away. These were gathered by the villagers with great difficulty. They are their blood and sweat. I don't need them, and I can't take them. That demonic beast, I will kill it! Without waiting for the old man to thank him, the middle-aged man turned around. His gaze swept around, and when it landed on Zichen Trio, he paused slightly. Rising into the air, under a series of exclamations, the other party's figure broke through the air and left. Gua village was filled with cheers. A powerful existence that could fly had come. Gua village seemed to have hope. The others followed. Everyone wanted to see the scene of a soul void realm killing a demonic beast. Looks like there are still good people in this world. After everyone left, Lan Gu-ming said. Shanya nodded and said, A soul void realm expert taking action. Dealing with the soul-devouring beast is not a problem at all. Let's go back. She agreed with Lan Gu-ming's words. If that soul void realm expert could not be considered a good person, then what could be considered a good person? Zichen said, Let's go and take a look. The two naturally had no objections. Big brother, big sister, are you heroes too? The child from before suddenly mustered his courage and asked. There were only the three of them left. Wan He stayed in the distance and did not come over. Zichen turned around and said with a smile, Hero? No, we are not heroes. We are the same as you. There is nothing special. Chapter 39:53. To a soul void realm, wanting to find a soul-devouring beast was not difficult. The middle-aged man merely used an hour to find the direction where the soul-devouring beast was hiding. Indeed, it was a soul-devouring beast that had yet to take human form. But its strength also reached Realm 9, just a step away from Soul Void Realm. Of course, Soul Void Realm did not recognize it. In his eyes, this was just a variant beast whose realm was not high. Beast, prepare to die! The middle-aged man roared angrily and charged towards the soul-devouring beast. A great battle erupted following that. Powerful auras surged. The surrounding large trees snapped one after another. Smoke and dust rose everywhere, fallen leaves dancing wildly. Both sides had a major realm disparity, but this battle actually did not immediately determine the victor. "All hurry up for me! To dare spoil young Master Meng's business, simply courting death." The man who left previously brought his subordinates to the forest at this moment. The commotion of the battle was enormous. It was hard not to find this place. Apart from the people led by the man, there were also quite a number of people approaching in the direction of the battle from all around. They were all here to watch the battle. Zeech and Trio walked at the back. Carriages could not advance in this place. One he did not follow. Soul Void Realm actually can't suppress a Realm 9 soul-devouring beast. This is really rare. Hearing the commotion of the battle, Lan Guming said, "Soul-devouring beasts are very powerful. They're adept at soul-devouring arts and are usually a realm stronger than ordinary soul hunters. Unless..." Shanya's words paused and gave Zeechan a glance. Probably only an existence like Zeechan could easily finish off a soul-devouring beast of the same rank. Lan Guming understood Shanya's meaning and said, "Too bad people with the ability don't plan on taking action." Zeechan said with a smile, "Don't you have the ability too? Why don't you go and help? Didn't you see that I'm preparing to go and rescue?" Lan Guming snorted. The smile on Zeechan's face did not diminish. "I saw it. It's just that the battle seems to have already ended. That soul-devouring beast is dead." Indeed, the huge commotion from before suddenly stopped. In between, it was even accompanied by the miserable cry of a soul-devouring beast. "That Soul Void Realm one." Lan Guming heaved a sigh of relief. Zeechan quickened his pace. "The battle is already over. Why are you still going there? Do you want to see a hero make a triumphant return?" Lan Guming asked. "Since you worship heroes so much, why don't you become one yourself? Of course we're here to watch a good show. If you don't hurry up, you won't be able to watch it." Zeechan's figure left behind a series of afterimages. He had actually used his power. Shanya and Lan Guming looked at each other and realized that the situation was serious. They immediately followed him. The soul-devouring beast, which was nearly 20 feet long, fell to the ground, motionless. Fresh blood continuously flowed out from its wounds. The Soul Void Realm expert fell beside the soul-devouring beast. His face was extremely pale. There were several deep claw marks on his chest, so deep that his bones could be seen. These were left behind when he exchanged his life with this demonic beast. In his left hand, he held a shiny object tightly. It was not his soul weapon, but the fragment of a sharp weapon. Or rather, it was the fragment of a soul weapon. Although he had reached the Soul Void Realm, he still did not have a soul weapon that belonged to him. This was also the reason why he was unable to suppress his opponent even though he clearly had the advantage in this battle. Looking at the dead demonic beast in front of him, the Soul Void Realm shook his head and smiled. "You bastard, you can fight quite well. Fortunately, I still exhausted you to death. This time, after getting the reward, counting the blue crystal coins that I saved, I should be able to find a soul weapon. Great hero, let's discuss something. Can you give me the reward?" A mocking laughter came from the forest. The sound of footsteps sounded. More than 10 people walked out from the forest. The one in the lead was the man who was scared away by the Soul Void Realm's shout. The Soul Void Realm's expression changed slightly. Not only did he consume a lot of energy in this battle, he was also seriously injured. He had long lost the strength to fight. He did not expect that the other party would actually return. Moreover, it was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. This made him secretly cry out that he was in trouble. But he did not show it. Instead, he said indifferently, "Are you courting death?" The man chuckled and said, "Trying to scare me? Let me tell you, I, Meng San of the Tiger Farm Path, do not have any other abilities. My ability to judge people is unique. You are already an arrow at the end of its flight. It is not easy for you to hold on. Do you still have the strength to fight? You are from the Tiger Farm Path?" The Soul Void Realm's expression did not change. His tone was still cold. Do you know what relationship I have with the Tiger Fang Path? Meng San walked forward unhurriedly. Sorry, I am not interested to know. I am not lying to you. I really don't. Even if you are the son of our path master, it is useless in front of me today. Meng San seemed to be very confident. He waved his hand and a person immediately came forward. He handed over a huge machete with both hands. Meng San took it in his hand and weighed it. He seemed to be very satisfied with the weight. He held the machete in his right hand and said with a smile, Until now, no one has dared to come over. Do you know why? Because they know where I came from. Right now, they don't even dare to look from afar for fear of causing trouble. After the battle ended, the crowd that was originally pacing back and forth immediately retreated. Meng San was not powerful. In the crowd of onlookers there were many who could suppress him. However, the Tiger Fang path behind Meng San was powerful. No one dared to provoke them. What kind of person is this old man? Why would he care about such a small amount of blue crystal coins? Meng San held the machete and walked forward. Master Meng San is just too bored and came out to have some fun. While I am at it, I also want to see their miserable appearances. Once I think of cheating them of their money and not helping them eliminate the demon, letting them turn into idiots one by one when they were full of hope, Master San's mood would be very good. Arriving in front of the Soul Void Realm, Meng San placed the machete on his opponent's neck. During this time, the Soul Void Realm struggled a few times but was unable to move his body at all. The soul-devouring beast's methods were far beyond his imagination. It's all your fault. Master San's plan was ruined by you just like that. Not only that, you actually dared to tell Master San to scram and even dared to use Master San as a negative example. Tell me, don't you deserve to die? Meng San's eyes flashed with a devouring light. You hurt my heart like this. Tell me, don't you think Master San should kill you? After killing you, shouldn't I go back and chop up that child? Didn't you not want to shatter the hope in his heart? This old man will bring the head of a hero like you back and crush his hope in front of him. Do you think Master San is a negative example? If you want to kill me, then kill me. This matter has nothing to do with others. The Soul Void Realm took a deep breath and said, Don't go looking for trouble with others. They are just ordinary people. Meng San chuckled. Looks like you aren't stupid. You know that after Master San kills you, he will go back and slaughter the entire village. That's right, not a single one of them will live. Even those fools, Master San will kill them. The Soul Void Realm closed his eyes and said in a low voice, Master San, I'm sorry. It's all my Zhangji's fault. I hope Master San won't hold a grudge against me and let the others go. They are just ordinary people and don't dare to go against Master San. What did you say? Did Master San not hear you clearly? Meng San pressed down the saber in his hand and bent down. Say it again for Master San to hear? Master San, I'm sorry. All of this. Just as Zhang Ji was apologizing, the saber in Meng San's hand left Zhang Ji's neck. Zhang Ji's body trembled, but his words didn't stop. It's all my Zhang Ji's fault. Master San, you. The saber was raised high and a cold light flashed, chopping towards Zhang Ji's neck. Your voice is too soft. Master San can't hear you. Ha ha. Meng San's sinister laughter rang out. And in the surroundings, the people brought by Meng San also laughed loudly. I say, the battle hasn't ended and the demon beasts haven't been eliminated. Isn't it too early for you to jump out and be the Oriole? Chapter 39:54. The broadsword stopped at Zhang Ji's neck. It did not hurt Zhang Ji at all. This was not Meng San stopping at the last moment. At this time, even if the Tiger Fang sect leader was here, he would not hesitate to slash down with his broadsword. It was a force that stopped him. It was as if someone was standing beside him and grabbing his arm. Around Meng San, the others turned around and gripped their weapons tightly. A young man walked out from where they came from. How dare you interfere in the Tiger Fang sect's matters? Are you looking for death? One of them shouted coldly. He was only at the 6th level. Zichen smiled and said, "Everyone, don't misunderstand. I'm not here to be a busybody. I'm just here to tell you guys out of goodwill that the battle is not over. The mission to kill the demon is not over yet. You guys are early. I've heard your words. Now scram!" Meng San glanced at the corpses on the ground, then looked at Zichen and said coldly. Shanya and Lan Gu Meng followed. After he saw the two women, Meng San's eyes lit up, and he said, "Out of consideration for your meddling in other people's business, Third Master will repay you this once. I'll kindly accept these two beauties for you. Scram right now! If I see you again in the future, I'll definitely kill your entire family to vent my anger." At this time, Meng San could already control the broadsword in his hand again. It seemed like he was talking to Zichen, but the broadsword in his hand suddenly turned and slashed down with all his strength. Meng San knew very well that if he did not kill this Soul Void Realm expert today, he would not have a future. This was his only chance. If he allowed the other party to live, he would definitely suffer a fate worse than death in the future. "I told you, you're in too much of a hurry. The demon hunting battle is not over yet." Zichen's voice sounded again. Suddenly, a shadow appeared in front of Meng San. At the same time, an oppressive aura surged toward him. Sensing this aura, Meng San's body involuntarily trembled, and he could no longer slash down. This time, it was not Zichen's doing. Meng San raised his head and looked at the black shadow. It was a huge creature that was close to 30 meters in size. Previously, Zhang Ji had only killed a small one. Now there was a big one. Meng San was dumbfounded. The people he brought with him felt that something was wrong and turned around one after another. When they saw the huge creature, they were even more scared and stood on the spot. They didn't even have the strength to run. This enormous soul-devouring beast did not roar in anger. Instead, it slowly moved forward. Within its ice-cold eyes, there seemed to be a hint of playful brutality. Zhang Ji's face also turned pale. Just from the aura, he knew that this was not something he could fight against. The news did not say that this demonic beast was so powerful. Shanya's expression changed. According to her understanding of the soul-devouring beast, as long as it could reach the Soul Void Realm, it could transform into a member of the soul-devouring clan. The aura of this soul-devouring beast was equivalent to the human soul realm. Why did it not transform? Or was it deliberately using its beast form? Lan Gu Meng was also shocked. There was suddenly a hint of coldness in the eyes of the soul-devouring beast. A whirlwind appeared around its body and swept forward. Right at this moment, Zichen moved. He stretched out his palm, and a soul light flew out from his palm. Like a spirit snake, it wrapped around Zhang Ji's body and brought him back. As the whirlwind approached, Meng San's robes fluttered gently, and his hair fluttered. He stood there motionless, but his life force had been devoured. The large blade in his hand fell to the ground. He did not even have the qualifications to be an idiot. His soul was directly taken away and he died on the spot. Zhang Ji's face was filled with fear. If it was not for the other party saving him in time, he would have died like Meng San. The others who followed Meng San reacted and wanted to run away. The whirlwind appeared again. It was black and extended in all directions. Zichen stood in place, and Zhang Ji stood behind him. Zichen did not move, but Zhang Ji's expression was changing. But soon, he became determined. He did not move either. The people that Meng San brought fell one after another. Like Meng San, their souls were directly devoured and they died. There was no possibility of survival. A whirlwind also came from Zichen's side, but just as it approached Zichen, it disappeared into thin air. When the few survivors who followed Meng San saw this, they immediately ran toward Zichen as if they had grasped at a life-saving straw. "Sir, save me!" As they ran, they shouted. Zichen stood there, indifferent. This time, even Lan Gu Meng and Shanya looked on coldly. The soul-devouring beast swooped forward. The whirlwind in the forest became a hurricane, and the black soul-devouring power spread in all directions. The originally bright forest immediately became dark. Banging sounds could be heard from time to time. Zhang Ji's face was filled with fear. He stood behind Zichen, not daring to move. Just when he felt that his soul could be taken away by the black wind at any time, he saw a protective light containing a domineering aura appear from all directions, protecting him. The young man in front of him was still standing there. His body was as motionless as a mountain. No matter how the black wind raged, it could not get close to him. And in the wilderness, there were continuous screams. It was the people who had retreated before. For some reason, they did not leave. Now, their souls were being taken away. All of a sudden, the surging black wind became even more intense. It was the huge monster beast that was flying towards them. The young man who was originally motionless suddenly took a step forward. The ground around him shook, and a strong aura surged out from the young man's body. The light of thunder bloomed, and the surroundings that were originally covered by the black wind suddenly became bright. The young man punched out. With a loud bang, the monster that was hit in the head flew backward. The black wind immediately dispersed, and the world returned to normal. Zhang Ji looked around and found that there were only 4 survivors, including him. The others were all dead. After the monster landed, it rolled a few times. As if it knew that it was no match, it turned around and ran. Zichen's eyes had a trace of surprise. He had restrained a part of his strength before. It seemed that he had knocked the monster back with one punch, but the monster was not injured at all. Did it want to run? Was it too timid? Or was it luring the enemy in? Zichen glanced at Zhang Ji behind him and said, "You guys stay here. I'll go up and take a look." Shanya took out an elixir and put it aside. Her figure flashed, and she followed up. She did not know why, but the appearance of this soul-devouring beast made her feel very unwilling. "Hero, that's your reward. You can exchange it for blue crystal coins." Lan Gu Ming pointed at the soul-devouring beast in the distance, and then at the dead people. "These are also your trophies." After saying that, she also left. Zhang Ji was left standing alone in a daze. He could faintly smell a fragrant wind. "Hero?" After a moment, he came back to his senses and laughed at himself. Chapter 39:55. Zhang Ji knew about the Tiger Fang Path. It was the largest faction here with a good reputation. However, it was his first time meeting someone like Meng San. Meng San had died long ago. It would be a waste not to take the money he had on him. As for the other things, he did not take them. Of course, he did not dare to take them. He looked around and found that many people had died. "Your luck is still a bit worse than mine." Zhang Ji looked at the dead people and sighed. "Didn't they leave already? Why didn't they go further away? If these people had left earlier, they would not have died here." He searched their bodies and found some blue crystal coins. It was not a lot, but it was better than nothing. After doing all this, he did not leave. Instead, he looked in the direction Zichen and the other 2 left. Would the 3 of them be able to kill the escaping beast? The soul-devouring beast's speed of escape exceeded Zichen's expectations. Fortunately, he was not slow either. Shanya and Lan Gumeng followed behind like 2 streaks of rainbow light. "Didn't I ask you to guard there?" Zichen said. Shanya and Lan Gumeng shook their heads at the same time. "It's speeding up. We have to be faster too." Zichen did not ask any more questions. He sped up and chased after the soul-devouring beast. Shanya and Lan Gumeng were on the left and right respectively. Beside Lan Gumeng, a beam of sword light whizzed forward and flew forward. The soul-devouring beast seemed to have sensed danger and began to flee in an arc. The flying sword light pierced through trees. "Those in the human soul realm can already transform. It doesn't seem to have the ability to transform. Its intelligence is also not as good as the soul-devouring clan." Shanya stared at the soul-devouring beast ahead. Zichen also noticed this problem. The opponent seemed to be a soul-devouring beast. However, the human soul realm strength could not be faked. Since it was already in the human soul realm, why couldn't it transform? The sword light was getting closer and closer to the soul-devouring beast. The soul-devouring beast seemed to be getting anxious. When it reached a cliff, it jumped down without hesitation. The sword light whizzed past and followed closely behind. In an instant, the sword light returned with a few drops of blood on it. Zichen and the others followed and stood above the cliff. The bottom of the cliff was empty. A few drops of blood fell to the bottom of the cliff. The soul-devouring beast seemed to have disappeared into thin air, its whereabouts unknown. It's gone! Zichen looked around. Could it be that it has learned the invisibility technique? Zichen's gaze slowly moved around his surroundings. At the same time, he used his soul power to investigate every single corner. Suddenly, his pupils constricted as he discovered something unusual. At the same time, Lan Gumeng and Shanya also seemed to have discovered something. A light flashed beside Zichen, and Wan He appeared. How is it? Zichen pointed at a certain spot on the cliff and said, There are some abnormal spatial fluctuations there. It should be hidden there. After he finished speaking, his figure descended and arrived at the abnormal spot. He then threw a punch at it. Waves of ripples surged out. Zichen's fist force dissipated, and a light screen appeared in front of him. The light screen seemed to be connected to another place, and Zichen's fist force had all converged into it. Zichen was slightly stunned. He subconsciously stretched out his hand and saw his palm easily pass through the light screen. He immediately withdrew his hand and turned around. Something strange. Lan Gumeng and Shanya flew over. Wan He was relatively slow. Zichen told the three of them about his discovery. Shanya and Lan Gumeng went forward one by one to try and found that they could pass through. But to be careful, the three of them did not rush in rashly. Instead, they looked at Wan He. With this powerhouse here, it was natural for him to take the lead. Wan He stretched out his hand and did not touch the ripples. Moreover, the ripples that appeared before had disappeared. Wan He withdrew his hand and smiled. Interesting. What do you mean? Asked Zichen. If I'm not wrong, this should be a space with restrictions on cultivation level. I can't enter with my cultivation level, said Wan He. In other words, those below the Earth Soul Realm can enter? Asked Zichen. His tone was much more relaxed. Now, he was almost certain that the soul-devouring beast had been hiding in this place. Perhaps the one that died earlier was also a soul-devouring beast from this place. And as long as it was a human soul realm cultivator, Zichen was not worried. Even if there were all kinds of dangers, he was still confident that he could make the trip. Wan He tried again and nodded. Yes, that's it. Lan Gumeng asked. So, it's very likely that there's a place of opportunity inside? Wan He looked ahead and said, This kind of place is very rare. No one can guarantee what's inside. It could be an opportunity, or it could be danger. Wan He looked at Zichen again. What do you plan to do? Zichen thought for a moment and said, Let's go in and take a look. Whether it's good or bad, that soul-devouring beast must be killed. Otherwise, with it here, this area can forget about living in peace. Shanya and Lan Gumeng also nodded. Whether there was an opportunity inside or not, that was a question for later. That soul-devouring beast must be killed. Moreover, they had another guess in their hearts. Perhaps there was a group of soul-devouring beasts inside, and that could be their nest. Wan He had no objections to this, but he instructed the three of them to be more careful. Zichen was the first to enter, Shanya and Lan Gumeng followed closely behind. This was a space that was not very big. The grass was green, and one could see the end of it at a glance. The energy in this area was very abundant, and it could be considered a good place of opportunity. As expected, the group of soul-devouring beasts did not appear. Other than the grass, there was nothing else. Look there! Shanya pointed into the distance. At the end of their line of sight, there was a black dot. That was the only abnormality here. The three of them flew forward, and the black dot in their line of sight gradually enlarged. It turned out to be a building. The soul-devouring beast of the human soul realm was not in their field of vision, so it should have entered that building. The building was 2 stories tall, like a manor. The door had been destroyed by force, which seemed to be the work of the soul-devouring beast. Arriving outside the building, Zichen looked down and released his soul power. There was no abnormality, nor was there any danger. The destroyed entrance was like another space passage. He did not know where it led, and his soul power could not detect it. After a slight hesitation, Zichen said, "I'll go in and take a look first." His figure landed, and light flashed in his hands. For safety reasons, the staff and shield appeared at the same time. Zichen cautiously entered. The two of them stood outside and waited patiently. There were no signs of battle. After about 10 breaths, Lan Gumeng, who did not see Zichen come out, flew down. She flashed in. After 5 breaths, Shanya also walked in. Shanya, who came in, was very careful, but did not encounter any danger. She saw Zichen and Lan Gumeng standing there, looking ahead. Shanya curiously walked forward and stood side by side with the two. A bright light entered her eyes. The light was constantly changing, which was emitted by the miracle stone. There was actually a miracle stone here. Chapter 39:56. He stood at the edge of the cliff, quietly waiting for the return of Zichen and the others. Discovering a small space with a cultivation realm restriction in this place should be considered an opportunity. However, for some reason, he felt a little uneasy in his heart. This was also the reason why he left the carriage and came here. A ray of light appeared in front of Wan He. It was an old man. He looked at Wan He and said with a smile, "Are you waiting for someone?" Wan He's expression changed. The old man said with a smile, "It seems that it's true. However, I feel that the person you're waiting for might not appear." Wan He glanced down. The rippled passage was still there, but the bad feeling in his heart had become stronger. In the space that only human soul realm experts could enter, 2 young men appeared out of thin air. To be able to reach this place, the 2 of them were obviously human soul realm experts. At this moment, the 2 young men looked at the building in front of them. One of them couldn't help but sneer. "This time, in order to deal with you, we didn't hesitate to pay a huge price. We gave up a small world and even took out a miracle stone. No matter how careful you are, you will never expect that this is a trap." The other party said coldly, "Therefore, all of you have to die. You must die. I didn't expect your Lan family to have such a strong foundation." At this moment, Shanya had just entered the building. Just as the 3 of them were looking at the miracle stone, the young man from the Lan family snapped his fingers. In an instant, the building where Zichen was hiding exploded. Powerful energy instantly flooded the surroundings. The building was reduced to ruins. Looking at the rolling energy in front of him, the young man sneered. "Let's see if you can survive this. That building is completely made of explosive talismans. Even an Earth Soul Realm expert will probably die if they enter." The man next to him said, "Your Lan family is so well prepared. Why did you come to our Shah family?" The young man from the Lan family said, "The reason why we asked you to come is just to be safe. That Zichen guy is extremely strange. We've tried to kill him many times, but he managed to escape every single time. You're worried that he's not dead?" The existence from the Shah family said, "Is that possible? It's almost impossible, but it's never wrong to be careful." The young man from the Lan family said, "This should be our last time, so we can't make any mistakes. Otherwise, you and I won't be able to go back." The person from the Shah clan smiled faintly. "You are too sensitive this." His smile suddenly disappeared, and he couldn't say the following words. Amidst the tumbling energy, a ray of light appeared. It was a protective light shield activated by a saint talisman. Zichen and the other 2 were standing inside the light shield. "How could this be?" The man from the Shah family cried out in alarm. "Didn't you guys plan this meticulously? How could he fail? Even the Earth Soul Realm experts inside are all dead, so why are the 3 human Soul Realm experts still alive?" The young man from the Lan family was also in disbelief. When he said "what if" earlier, he was just being polite. At the same time, he also wanted to let the people of the Shah family see the true strength and background of their lineage. Who would have thought that Zichen actually didn't die? Their setup was very ingenious. There was a threat in the opportunity, so it shouldn't have been discovered in advance. Moreover, once the explosive talisman was activated, even if Zichen reacted, he wouldn't be able to defend in time. Even if he activated the 100-soldier light shield, it wouldn't work. He would die in an instant. All of this had been planned, but why had Zichen reacted so quickly? What was the origin of that Saint Talisman? How could it block the attack of the explosive talisman? Could it be that he had been holding it in his hand all along? The Saint Talisman was a gift from the Mountain Lord of Saint Talisman when he left the sacred mountain. Zichen didn't use it all the way. He only took it out at the critical moment. There was one thing that the young man from the Lan family guessed right, and that was that Zichen had been secretly holding the Saint Talisman in his hand. Just as the building exploded and the miracle stone exploded, Zichen activated the Saint Talisman without hesitation. Then, without any hesitation, he activated the second and third talisman. As soon as the light of the first Saint Talisman appeared, it was destroyed by the terrifying energy. The second talisman didn't last long either. Immediately after, the third talisman dissolved the remaining energy. If Zichen hadn't been decisive enough to activate the 3 Saint Talismans in an instant, the 3 of them would have died even if they were vigilant. The violent energy around them dissipated. The Saint Talisman in front of Zichen also consumed the last bit of energy and shattered. The figures of the 3 appeared. At this moment, Lan Gumeng and Shanya's faces were pale. Especially after seeing the 2 people in the distance, they felt even more scared. This was a trap specially set up to target them. From the moment the soul-devouring beast appeared, this trap was set up. The person who set up the trap was waiting for them to take the bait. They didn't know if that hero Zhang Ji was an accomplice of the person who set up the trap. Fortunately, Zichen reacted quickly and saved their lives. As the energy dissipated, Zichen walked forward. A small world and a miracle stone. You've really invested a lot. But I'm sorry you've failed. In the sky, the people of the Lan family and the Sha family had ugly expressions. Zichen said, "Don't think about escaping. You won't be able to escape. For your respective families, fighting to the death here is the best ending. Humph, you're lucky that you didn't die earlier. I'd like to see how strong you are to be so arrogant." The man from the Sha family waved his hand and light appeared in the dark. There were more than 20 human soul realm experts hiding in the dark. Looking at those human soul realm experts who were seething with killing intent, Zichen shook his head with a look of pity. This was the world of the human soul realm. Only those in the human soul realm could come here. Under such circumstances, facing Zichen at his peak was simply courting death. Moreover, besides Zichen, there were 2 extremely angry Lan Gumeng and Shanya. One of them was a divine soul goddess, and the other was a god's chosen one. The battle broke out. Although these existences from the Sha family were all prepared and had many tricks up their sleeves, they were nothing in front of the 3 of them. The young man from the Lan family had a look of despair. When he saw that Zichen was unharmed, he had already lost all hope. Now, looking at this devastating battle, he was even more disheartened. His plan this time had failed again. And just as Zichen said, they couldn't go back. Even if it wasn't for himself, he had to protect his family from being implicated. Gritting his teeth, he charged forward and faced death with equanimity. And he was indeed dead. None of the human soul realm experts who appeared here could leave alive. Beside the cliff, He couldn't help but frown as he listened to the old man's nagging. The old man smiled and said, "Why? You don't like it? Do you think I'm spouting nonsense and that they can still come out alive? You're so stupid. I really don't know how you reached the Earth Soul realm." He said impatiently, "I don't know if they can come out, but you talk too much nonsense." With that, he struck out with his saber. With a flash of golden light, the old man's body was split into 2. "Take it that I, am begging you. Before coming, I beg you to do your homework and see who you're facing. Imitating an elder's nagging in front of me, aren't you old men eating arsenic?" Wan He continued to strike, this time from the side. The saber light entered the void, and there were ripples surging. The Earth Soul Realm expert hidden in the dark was killed with a single strike. Then Wan He slashed out a third time. Chapter 39:57. 3 blades, 3 people. 3 Earth Souls. Sheathing his blade, Wan He looked at the incomplete corpses on the ground and shook his head. Where did these country bumpkins come from? Back when Wan He attacked the Fong clan, even the Fong clan's patriarch didn't dare to stop them and let them leave. But this time, the enemy had actually only sent 3 Earth Soul Realm experts. This gave Wan He sufficient reason to guess that these people were ignorant and inexperienced. After killing 3 Earth Souls who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, Wan He looked at the ripple passage ahead with some worry in his eyes. He could look down on the 3 Earth Souls, but he had to admit that the enemy's trap was exquisite. Even he couldn't see through it. It was a well-prepared trap, and he didn't know if Sichin could resolve it. That kid doesn't look like someone with a short life. He won't die here, right? Wan He muttered in his heart. At this moment, ripples surged in front of him, and someone walked out. Wan He's eyes narrowed, and a chill appeared in his eyes. But when he saw who it was, the chill in his eyes dissipated, and he smiled. It was Sichin. I thought you died in there, Wan He joked. I almost died. This is a real sure kill situation. It can only be said that I was lucky to be able to come back. Sichin didn't smile, and his expression became very serious. Sure kill? The smile on Wan He's face also disappeared. Sichin nodded. This time, he was really lucky. Shanya and Lan Gu Meng also had lingering fears. If it wasn't for Sichin, the two of them would have died. At the same time, Lan Gu Meng's face was also filled with guilt. I'm sorry. They came because of me. I can sense the Lan clan's aura. Even though those people didn't report their names, Lan Gu Meng naturally knew their identities with her perception of the Lan clan's power. The reason why these people came was entirely because of Lan Gu Meng. Until now, the Lan clan still hadn't given up on hunting her down. Sichin and Shanya were innocently implicated. Lan Gu Meng felt even more ashamed when she thought about how she was the one who insisted on coming here to catch the demon. Sichin said, You don't have to blame yourself. This is related to you, but it's not entirely your fault. We were able to escape death this time because we had the help of an expert. The help of an expert? Lan Gu Meng was very puzzled. Where was the expert this time? Wan He? Sichin wouldn't use that word to describe it, would he? Sichin glanced at Shanya. Shanya was puzzled, but she quickly reacted. She thought of the Ghost King. Although she had only caught a glimpse of him, it had still affected her state of mind, so she told Sichin. Could it be that Sichin was on guard because of this? Sichin didn't say it explicitly, and Shanya didn't ask again. Because the Ghost King might be related to that mysterious young man, and that mysterious young man had extraordinary magical powers. At least until now, Shanya had never seen an existence who could suppress another's realm through rules. Sichin nodded. Everything was in silence. Sichin didn't care whether the person Shanya saw was the Ghost King or not. He also didn't intend to ask why the Ghost King helped him. He thought of something. When he was breaking through to the next realm in Kata, a voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. It was a woman's voice, indifferent and emotionless. It was at that time that he obtained the technique to summon the underworld ghost. The underworld ghost that followed helped him resolve many crises. On the trip to the sacred mountain, it transformed into a real existence with flesh and blood. After that, the voice never appeared again. This time, the Ghost King appeared in Shanya's vision. There was definitely an expert helping him, but Sichin couldn't guess who it was. Fortunately, Shanya took that warning seriously, and so did he. In fact, when he saw Fengyu the last time, Sichin had guessed whether this was a trap. The reason why he didn't refine the Emperor Gold scale was related to his temperament, but also to his caution. Even if he did refine it in the end, he wouldn't do it in the water manner. He would leave and find a safe place. Zichen noticed the corpses around him, but his expression didn't change much. Since the other party came prepared, they would naturally send out Earth's Soul Realm experts. However, they only sent 3 of them. They were underestimating Wan He too much. Zichen went forward and searched, but didn't find any wealth. However, he did find 3 soul weapons. It was just that the 3 powerful Earth Soul experts didn't even have time to use their soul weapons before they died under Wan He's blade. Let's go. Wan He turned and the 4 of them walked back the way they came. On the way, they met Zhang Ji. He hadn't left yet. Shanya and Lan Gu Meng's expressions changed slightly. This demon-killing trip was clearly a trap, and this Zhang Ji might be a part of it. When Zhang Ji saw the 3 of them, he said excitedly, "You guys are fine. That's great. Why haven't you left yet?" Zichen asked. Zhang Ji said embarrassedly, "I only killed a small one. The real great demon didn't die." Zichen said, "Now that it's dead, you've completed your mission." This made Zhang Ji even more embarrassed. Zichen threw something to Zhang Ji. It was a soul weapon. It was a mortal soul expert's weapon. Zhang Ji subconsciously caught it. After seeing the soul weapon, he was stunned and puzzled. "You need a weapon to be chivalrous." A smile appeared on Zichen's face. "Don't feel embarrassed. Just try your best to help more people in the future. However, when helping others, you have to do what you can. If the person dies, then there's nothing left." "I understand." Zhang Ji nodded. Holding the soul weapon, he cupped his fists at Zichen. After swallowing the elixir Shanya gave him, he, who had recovered from his injuries, carried the dead soul-devouring beast and flew away. Lan Gu Meng and Shanya, who had been on guard, finally relaxed. They had always thought that Zhang Ji might be an accomplice. A person who doesn't want to destroy a child's hope will not wallow in the mire with those people. Zichen looked at Zhang Ji's departing figure with a sincere smile on his face. The carriage was just outside the forest. It had left Gui village at some point. Next, it was time to leave. However, Zichen glanced at Gui village's direction and felt a little sorry for them. Wan He looked at Zichen, who suddenly stopped. Zichen said, "After all, this started because of us. Speaking of which, we also caused them to become like this. They are all innocent. Do you have a way to save them?" Zichen didn't care about the deaths of those who were in the forest. However, those ordinary people who had lost their souls did not deserve to suffer such torment. Shanya and Lan Gu Meng also nodded. They felt very apologetic. "You want to be a good person. Why are you dragging me into this?" Wan He curled his lips. "We don't have the strength." "Who asked you to be a great expert?" Zichen chuckled and sighed in relief. It seemed that Wan He had a way. "So what if he's a great expert? Isn't he still a tool for you? You're a hero. A hero in our hearts." "Bullshit hero. Whoever wants to be a hero can be one." Wan He walked towards Guisien, and the horse followed behind him obediently. Chapter 3958. The old man was still standing at the entrance of Gui village. His wrinkled face was filled with worry. The commotion earlier was quite loud, accompanied by occasional screams. It seemed that something unexpected had happened. This made the old man even more uneasy. Little Bean was still standing beside the old man. His small hands clutched the corner of the old man's clothes tightly. His eyes were filled with tears. The screams made him tremble in fear. After the screams, there was a long period of silence. Some of the lucky survivors screamed, "Dead? They're all dead!" Then, they ran away in fear. "Does the heavens want Gui village to die? What sin has my Gui village committed?" The old man raised his head and cried. He was on the verge of despair. "Grandpa, someone's coming!" Little Bean saw several people walk out of the forest. The old man looked over and saw 4 people walking towards him. He remembered that one of the 4 didn't come over. The other 3 were the last to leave. At that time, Little Bean asked the young man a question. Little Bean didn't understand the young man's answer. When Little Bean asked about it later, the old man didn't understand either. Old man, you're safe now. That monster is dead. Seeing the old man's nervous expression, Zichen said when he was about 10 feet away. Really? The old man couldn't believe it. Zichen smiled and nodded. It can't be any more real. That's great. The heavens have eyes. The heavens have eyes. The old man cried tears of joy. He was about to tell the rest of the village. Little Bean, come with me. But after taking a few steps, the old man came to his senses. He turned around and said, Young hero, thank you for saving Gua village. This is a token of our appreciation. Please accept it. The old man excitedly took out the blue crystal coin and handed it to Zichen with both hands. We didn't kill the monster. We can't accept it. Zichen waved his hand. The old man was startled. We're here to check on the unconscious villagers. This senior of mine happens to be an expert in medicine. We'll see if he can be of any help. Zichen pointed at Wan He. The old man was naturally delighted, but he soon said with difficulty, Young hero, to tell you the truth, Gua village doesn't have any money left. Previously, many doctors came because of your fame, but they... Don't worry, we won't prescribe medicine, and we won't ask for money. If we can't save everyone, we'll leave. If we can help, we'll help for free. Zichen smiled. He naturally understood the other party's concerns. Thinking about it, there should be a lot of doctors visiting this place during this period of time. There might be some who sincerely wanted to save people, but there should also be many who wanted to take advantage of this situation and make money. The old man shed tears of gratitude and warmly invited them into the village. At the same time, he told everyone the good news. Of course, Zichen told everyone that the one who killed the demonic beast was Zhang Ji. Little Bean was very excited because in his eyes, Zhang Ji himself was a great hero. Wan He went to see the patients. Of course, he said that he was going to see them, but in fact, it was just for show. Zichen was very clear about everyone's condition. Big brother, you're a hero too! Zichen sat in the village chief's courtyard and looked up at the sunset. Little Bean came closer and said excitedly. Zichen gestured for Little Bean to sit next to him. The child was a bit reserved. I'm not a hero. I'm just an ordinary person like you. Zichen patted Little Bean's head and said with a smile. Your friend can save my parents and the others in the village. He's a hero, and you're a hero's friend. Of course, you're a hero too. Little Bean clearly didn't agree with Zichen's words. He forcefully explained. Because a friend of a hero can only be a hero. Zichen smiled and said. A hero only does one or a few meaningful things and receives everyone's recognition. That's why they're called heroes. In fact, before doing these things, heroes are just ordinary people like you and me. Little Bean was clearly very smart. He asked, Big brother, you mean, I can also be a hero? Of course, when you do something meaningful one day, you'll be a hero in everyone's heart. Looking at the gradually disappearing sun, Zichen said, But you have to remember, heroes have to live first. Zichen thought of Zhang Ji. He only came here for the bounty and didn't want to be a hero. However, he didn't want to see a child's hope be destroyed so early, so he stepped forward to be a hero. However, he almost lost his life because of this. Although it wasn't very rational, Zichen didn't think Zhang Ji was wrong. This was also why he was willing to give him a high-grade soul weapon. This world needed people like him. In other words, only when there were more people like him could the world become better. Zhang Ji was someone who could make the world better. Pang Chang was the same back then. Zhang Ji returned. When he saw Zichen, he was very surprised. He immediately wanted to bow to Zichen, but Zichen waved his hand. As for Little Bean, he looked at Zhang Ji with eyes full of worship. Zichen smiled and said, Hero, I'll have to trouble you to make another trip to the town. Say that Gua village has a godly doctor who can save those who have lost consciousness. However, the godly doctor will only stay here for tomorrow and will leave the day after tomorrow. During this day, he will treat everyone for free. As a soul void realm expert, Zhang Ji was very clear about the situation of those who had lost their souls. He didn't expect that this young man could actually revive their souls. It had to be said that this was very impressive. Therefore, this great hero didn't even have time to enjoy the worship of the villagers before he flew to the town again and spread the news. A day's time was enough for those people to revive. The sky was approaching. Zhang Ji, who had walked back and forth, returned and came to Zichen's temporary residence. "Thank you very much for today's matter." Zhang Ji thanked him again. Zichen gestured for him to sit down and said, "How much do you know about the Tiger Fang sect?" "Tiger Fang sect?" Zhang Ji was slightly stunned. He didn't expect this lord to ask this question. Zichen said, "Tell me everything you know, good or bad." "The Tiger Fang sect is the largest faction here. The sect master is a human soul realm expert. It's said that his combat strength is very strong." Zhang Ji told him everything he knew about the Tiger Fang sect. There was almost nothing good. Instead, they suppressed many merchants and did many evil things. However, it wasn't too evil. For example, Meng San's situation, Zhang Ji told him the truth. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. The other party's personality was twisted. He took pleasure in killing people. Furthermore, Zhang Ji told Zichen that Meng San might be from the Tiger Fang sect. Perhaps he was a direct descendant of the Tiger Fang sect. He might have made a mistake, so he came to this place. That night, Zichen left his room and went to the Tiger Fang sect. Chapter 39-59. The Tiger Fang path suffered a huge blow, which exceeded everyone's expectations. While everyone was shocked, there were also many people who clapped their hands in joy. Relying on their strength, the people of the Tiger Fang path bullied many others. Whether in the open or in the dark, there were many who had their families destroyed. After learning that only one person had caused trouble for the Tiger Fang path, people could not help but guess that the arrogant Tiger Fang path had finally provoked someone they should not have. When Zhang Ji, who had been staying in Gua village, heard the news, Zichen's group had already left. Estimating the time, it should have been the night when he told Zichen about the Tiger Fang path. Zhang Ji was very shocked. He did not expect Zichen to be so strong. However, when he thought of the existence following him, who could even recover the souls of ordinary people, he understood. The Tiger Fang path suffering a heavy blow was naturally a good thing for Zhang Ji. After all, he had returned to Gua village because he was worried about the Tiger Fang path's revenge. Now, it seemed that he did not need to worry anymore. The dead Ming San probably would not have thought that his viciousness would cause the Tiger Fang path such a huge loss. However, he would not leave immediately. According to his agreement with Zichen, he needed to stay here for 2 years. During these 2 years, he needed to teach little bean cultivation. Of course, he could also teach the other children. Similarly, during these 2 years, he could calmly refine the soul weapon that Zichen had given him. Its grade was so high that it left him speechless. Even if he spent 2 years, he might not be able to refine it. The 4 of them continued north. The saber intent that had not appeared before once again landed on the 3 of them. The road ahead became difficult again. Wan He abandoned the carriage and followed behind the 3 of them on horseback. This trip was considered a sightseeing trip. If it were not for the saber intent, it would have been a rare trip. Once, in the wilderness, they saw a person living in a thatched hut. He was a human soul who was only a step away from the Earth soul realm. According to Wan He, a breakthrough was just around the corner. When the 4 of them passed by, the other party warmly invited them to drink a cup of mountain tea. He even saw a battle in a remote place. Both parties were in the human soul realm, and for some reason, they fought to the death. When the 4 of them approached, the 2 of them stopped and waited for the 4 of them to pass before continuing to attack. Zichen didn't understand why Wan He deliberately walked between them. Wan He's explanation also puzzled Zichen. It was not easy to be a cultivator here. It would be good if one less died. He had also seen a transformed sea demon, but it was not from the Golden Scales clan. Although the other party hid its aura very well, Zichen still sensed it. Wan He said, "Although the sea demons live at the bottom of the sea, they still need to live. They trade with the soul hunters, but most of them are here to collect information." "No one cares?" Zichen asked. "Their concealment techniques are extremely profound. Only a few special existences can sense them." Wan He looked at the sea demon who was browsing the shops. "If we weren't here, who would know that he's from the sea demon clan? Of course, the main reason is that the sea demon clan doesn't have any hostility towards us, so the soul hunters let them be." They didn't stay in the city. They bought some things and rested for the night before continuing on their journey. The further north they went, the slower their speed became. This was because the saber intent that landed on them became purer. The three of them subconsciously slowed down. Wan He sat on his horse and took his time. Just like that, they traveled for another half a year. During this time, they passed by 2 cities. Zichen realized that the realms of the people he met were getting higher. He even saw earth souls frequently. This made Zichen very curious about what was in the north. His goal was to bring Lan Gu Meng to the north. Another half a year passed. On this day, the 3 of them endured the saber intent as usual. Shanya, who was walking beside Zichen, suddenly dispersed the saber intent that flowed around her body after several hours. Immediately after, a powerful aura emanated from her body. This aura surpassed the human soul realm and reached the earth soul realm. Wan He, who was behind them, noticed this scene. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. In his opinion, the first of the 3 to break through should be the divine soul goddess. He didn't expect it to be Shanya. Sensing the aura of the human soul realm, Zichen smiled and said, "Congratulations." Lan Gu Meng also had a smile on her face. This was the only thing worth celebrating on this somewhat boring journey. Unfortunately, Wan He didn't allow them to stop celebrating. They continued on their journey. He didn't even give Shanya time to quietly experience this realm. In just half a month, Lan Gu Meng broke through. She, who had been deliberately suppressing her state, reappeared the blue wings on her back. A unique aura was displayed. At this moment, under the sunlight, she was like a true heavenly maiden. At the same time, in the distant Lan family, the heavenly maiden statue also released a resplendent light. At the same time, a strong suction force enveloped the entire family. The spiritual energy of the entire Lan family was constantly converging towards the statue. The Lan family's spiritual energy was rapidly depleting. Such a phenomenon alarmed many people in the Lan family. Some were excited, while others cursed in low voices. Lan Rui, who was busy with work, personally came before the statue. He stood there for more than half a day. This time, the Lan family had spent a lot of effort to reorganize. If not for some radicals targeting the heavenly maiden, he would have been in even more trouble. Today's change should have been caused by the heavenly maiden's breakthrough. As a result, the heavenly maiden was only at the earth soul realm. He believed that no matter how radical the Lan family's radicals were, they wouldn't dare to assassinate the heavenly maiden. An earth soul realm heavenly maiden wasn't someone that could be killed by just anyone. The phenomenon on Lan Gu Meng's body didn't dissipate for a long time. This shocked Wan He. He knew of the legends of heavenly maidens, but this was the first time he saw the phenomenon brought about by a heavenly maiden breaking through. She was only at the earth soul realm, but she was already so powerful. What would happen if she became a true heavenly maiden? No wonder it was said that heavenly maidens were the only hope of the north. Then, Wan He looked at Zichen. The disadvantage of being a descender was already displayed at this moment. No matter how strong Zichen was and how invincible he was in the same realm, he was naturally nothing in front of 2 Earth Soul Realm experts. "Alright, let's move forward at full speed and head straight for the north." After Lan Gu Meng had broken through, Wan He had said this sentence. "Hey, isn't this too unfair? I haven't broken through yet." Zichen expressed his inner protest. Wan He said, "Your performance is already very good. The rest of the journey will depend on the 2 of them. After all, you are a descender. It's already very extraordinary for you to have such achievements." Wan He's words weren't just to encourage Zichen. He really did it, and began to move at full speed. This made Zichen a little depressed. What's in the north? One day, Zichen finally couldn't hold back his curiosity, and asked. Chapter 3960. Death Canyon? This was the first time Zichen had heard such a term. Yes, a place where only life and death are determined. One he said in a deep voice. Only when you reach that place will you know that life and death are the most important things in the world. One he glanced at Zichen and said, Your combat strength is extraordinary, but not everyone can go to the battlefield in that place. The simplest division is the realm. Only those in the Earth's soul realm are qualified to enter the battlefield to participate in the battle. But they are only the lowest soldiers and can die at any time. Zichen asked. The enemy is the soul-devouring clan? That's right. How long has the battle lasted? A long time, a long time. How will it end? One he thought for a moment and said, There has always been a legend that when the Death Canyon is filled with corpses, the battle between the two clans will end completely. Although Zichen had never seen the Death Canyon, he could imagine the fierce battle that had taken place in it through Wan He's simple description. Only those in the Earth Soul realm could participate in the battle. Obviously, he was not qualified. Wan He said, When we reach the city, I'll try to find you a job without danger, such as being a chef. An invincible Soul Realm expert who had not broken through was treated like this in the Death Canyon. Zichen did not know whether to cry or laugh. Under normal circumstances, Lan Guming would definitely laugh at Zichen, but she did not this time. Because Zichen's current situation seemed to be like a king with supreme power who had become an ordinary person in a single move. No one would be able to withstand such a change. Shanya even felt a little sad for Zichen. She felt that fate was too unfair. When he was in Kata, Zichen had already suffered a lot. When he came here, he was also surrounded by dangers. That was why he could achieve what he had today. Why did the last part of the journey turn out like this? A chef? That's not bad. I'm very good at cooking. Zichen smiled and looked very cheerful. He did not feel like a tiger that had fallen from the plains. They continued to move forward, still speeding up. The further they went, the fewer cities they encountered. The size of the cities was also getting smaller. However, the number of experts in the cities was not small. In the end, Zichen could no longer see any soul realms. According to Wan He, nearly 60% of the soul hunters were gathered in the north. Wan He was still riding a horse. During one of their chats, Zichen learned that the horse had been with Wan He for a long time, and that it wasn't just bought from the roadside. On this day, Wan He looked ahead and said, Let's see what's different. Zichen looked ahead and saw a stretch of Gobi Desert, which was no different from this place. He raised his head to look at the sky. The color of the sky was different. It was a faint red. The clouds that gathered in the sky were blood red. That's called the blood cloud. It's said that it's formed from blood that won't disperse. Wan He said. Seeing the blood cloud means that we have arrived at the Death Canyon. Wan He rode in the front. He entered the blood-red sky. The horse's body trembled obviously, as if it was bearing a great weight on its back. Zichen followed closely behind. His body swayed and he fell. A powerful force gathered from all directions, as if it wanted to press his body to the ground. At the same time, there seemed to be many small forces that entered his body, blocking the power of his entire body. The huge pressure kept coming, like a wave, pressing Zichen's body down bit by bit. Finally, he knelt on the ground, panting heavily. How are you? Shanya asked with concern, but her tone was not normal. Zichen shook his head and then looked at Shanya. He found that her face was very pale, and she did not seem to be feeling well. However, she still stood there, not in a sorry state like Zichen. On the other side, Lan Guming was the same. This is the area where the Blood Canyon is. After coming here, you will need to re-understand this world. Wan He rode forward, but the horse's speed was relatively slow. Zichen stood up with difficulty and walked forward step by step. His speed could not keep up with Wan He's horse. It should be noted that Wan He was also walking with a heavy burden. Lan Gu Meng and Shanya were faster than Ziqin. However, the two deliberately took care of Ziqin and did not walk very fast. The difference is obvious? Ziqin laughed self-deprecatingly. The further they went, the stronger the pressure Ziqin found. Not only did he not adapt, but he also felt that it was difficult to move. On the other hand, Shanya and Lan Gu Meng seemed to have gradually adapted. Wan He looked back at Ziqin. How do you feel? There is a force that keeps entering my body, blocking the power of the past. Ziqin said. It's like the meridians are blocked, and the power that can be mobilized is very little. Wan He said. Feel it carefully and work hard to overcome it. Ziqin nodded. After that, Ziqin found that he could not overcome it at all. As they continued to move forward, he could not even mobilize the last bit of power. Ziqin smiled bitterly again. After walking like this for several days, they ate all the food they brought. After being unable to mobilize power, Ziqin found that his appetite had greatly increased, and he was often hungry. Finally, they saw a city. The city walls were blood-red, as if cast with blood and mud. The city gate was wide open, and there were no guards at the gate. As they approached, a bloody aura came, making Ziqin feel a strong sense of oppression. They entered the city but did not see a single person. Wan He dismounted from his horse and stood there. Ziqin said, This city seems to be empty. As soon as he said that, a man walked out from the corner and quickly walked toward them. When he came closer, the man asked, Who are you? Wan He of the Holy Mountain. Wan He took out the Holy Mountain token that represented his identity. After looking at the token, the man smiled and said, The three of you come with me. Wan He said, Not 3 but 4. 4? The man was slightly stunned and said, But he's only in the human soul realm. According to the rules. Before the man could finish, Wan He said, I have the authority to take him in. All right then. The man did not dwell on this matter and directly motioned for the 4 to follow. At this time, Ziqin and the other 2 were still confused and did not know what was going on. The 5 of them walked toward the center of the city. Along the way, they saw some people, and all of them were in the human soul realm. Most of the gazes of these human soul realm experts would linger on Ziqin. With Lan Gu Meng and Shanya beside him, Ziqin was never the most eye-catching one, because it was never his turn. The 2 great beauties would take away all the attention. Unexpectedly, he became the focus of attention today. Chapter 3961. In the center of the city, there were 2 stone pillars. There were ancient carvings on the pillars, and on the carvings were some unknown beasts. An old man sat cross-legged beside them like a guardian. The people who appeared in Ziqin's field of vision were all at the human soul realm. Furthermore, they were all sizing him up with strange gazes. It was as though Ziqin received more attention and was more attractive than the 2 beautiful girls. The young man who led the way took the initiative to leave after bringing the 4 of them here. Wan He walked forward with Ziqin following behind. The 2 girls walked side by side with him on his left and right. The old man opened his eyes. His eyes were a little turbid, and there was no aura around him. He didn't look like an otherworldly expert at all. However, to be able to guard this place, the old man's identity was naturally extraordinary. It was just that the few of them couldn't sense the old man's cultivation realm. Sacred Mountains, Wan He. Wan He approached and took the initiative to bow to the old man. The old man glanced at Wan He and nodded. Then, he looked to the side. When his gaze landed on Lan Gu Meng, his eyes seemed to sparkle. Then, he looked at Ziqin and Shanya. Although this is your first time here, Golden Saber Wan He's reputation has long been known. This time, are you and your saber prepared? My saber is sharp and ready to be stained with blood at any time, Wan He said with a heroic aura. That's good. The old man looked at Lan Gu Meng and Shanya. There's no problem with the 2 of them. Then, the old man looked at Ziqin who was standing in the middle. A human soul realm stood between two Earth soul realm experts and acted as if it was only natural. It was quite interesting. Retracting his gaze from Zichen, the old man said, "But are you sure you want to let him in? Don't you need to adapt to this place? Since he's someone you brought, I can make an exception." As he didn't know much about this place, Zichen didn't know what the old man was talking about. He shook his head. "No need. Just go in. Since you've already made your decision, please go ahead." The old man sat there without moving. He walked forward to the center of the two pillars of light. The stone pillar, which had existed for an unknown number of years, began to glow. The carvings on it became vivid and lifelike. Those strange birds and beasts seemed to be coming to life. Zichen looked at the stone pillar and saw a familiar pattern. It was the blue dragon beast. Just as Zichen was surprised that the stone pillar had a blue dragon beast engraved on it, he saw a tunnel appear between the two stone pillars. "Follow me into Bloody Battle City." He was the first to step into the passageway. Immediately, a blood-red light burst out from the stone pillar. The old man nodded slightly, seemingly very satisfied with this. Walking behind he was Lan Gu Meng. After she entered, she also brought about a strange phenomenon on the stone pillar. Within the original blood-red light, there was now a resplendent blue light. After that, it was Shanya's turn to enter the passageway, triggering a dazzling light. There was clearly a strange glint in the old man's eyes. Finally, it was Zichen. As a human soul, he was the last to enter. However, before he entered, the old man suddenly said, "If you can't persist, I can allow you to retreat. Sometimes, retreating is to advance better the next time. It's not shameful. Take this. You can retreat at any time." The old man threw a blood-colored token to Zichen. Zichen took the token but didn't immediately enter. After some hesitation, he asked, "Sir, may I ask where this place is?" "You don't know where this place is?" The old man's eyes were filled with astonishment. "I only know that it's Death Canyon. Previously, I heard that we were about to go to Bloody Battle City." "I don't know anything else," Zichen said truthfully. "Kid, you sure are bold. You dare come here to join in the fun without knowing where this place is." The old man sized up Zichen and said, "However, it's not a bad thing to not know where this place is. All you need to know is that this is a place for battle. In the entire world, there's no place more suitable for battle tempering than here." Zichen asked, "Then are there cultivation techniques here?" He had already sent Lan Gu Meng to the north and completed the instructions of the Lan family's ancestor. Now, it was time for him to consider himself. After all, he had been here for too long. "Of course," said the old man. Zichen asked again, "Are there any special cultivation techniques?" This time, the old man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he thought about it seriously and finally said, "As long as you can name a cultivation method, there should be many. Even if you can't name it, there are still many. It depends on whether you have the ability to obtain it." At this point, Zichen was relieved. After putting away the blood-colored token, he cupped his fists at the old man and thanked him before turning to leave. Zichen, who entered, didn't cause any abnormalities to the stone pillar. However, the old man didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the world seemed to tremble the moment Zichen disappeared. However, some of the old men who were distracted wondered if they were hallucinating. He is already hard to find in 1,000 years, and the Holy Maiden is even more amazing. In addition, there's a strange woman who doesn't seem to be weaker than the Holy Maiden. This should be able to bring some changes to Bloody Battle City. The old man murmured, "I wonder where that woman came from. She's actually on par with the Holy Maiden." Then, the old man sighed again. The reason why he gave the young man whose name he didn't even know a chance to retreat was that the old man was in a good mood today. On the other hand, he was worried that the young man would be too stubborn and his mind wouldn't be able to bear the blow. After all, someone who could be recognized by he and brought in should have some special abilities. Perhaps with some training, he would become a warrior in the future. Even if his achievements couldn't be compared to any of the three, it would still be good to have another talented warrior. The young man who led the way earlier walked over. Master, isn't this against the rules? The old man turned his head and said, What do you mean by against the rules? Bringing someone in earlier was already a privilege. Master also gave him a blood-colored battle token. This is a privilege that some general-level warriors don't even have. What if he uses this token to commit crimes after going in? The young man said with some resentment in his eyes. The old man was amused when he heard this. Get lost, you little brat. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Let me tell you, there's no way you can go in. The young man said with grievance. Master, I'm your dearest disciple. You're even willing to give a stranger a blood-colored battle token. Why don't you allow me to go to Bloody Battle City? Why? Because this old man is in a good mood. What do you know? Hurry up and get lost. When you master the soul-shaking art, you can stand in front of me and reason with me. The old man waved his sleeve and a wind appeared, carrying the young man away. The old man's mood was really good because after so many years, the Holy Maiden had finally come to Bloody Battle Valley. Zichen came to Bloody Battle City. The pressure of this world was even greater, so he needed some time to adapt. Chapter 3962. My name is Zhang Jinjing. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. First of all, I welcome you. Now, please come with me. After Zichen arrived at Bloody Battle City, Wan He, who was waiting here, said goodbye to him. The three of them left together, and the young man called Zhang Jinjing came. At this moment, Zichen's mind was in a mess. He didn't know what to ask. The sudden departure of the three of them made him feel a little uncomfortable. Zhang Jinjing turned around and walked in another direction. Zichen followed him, but after taking a few steps, he staggered and stumbled. The pressure here was extremely great. He still couldn't get used to it, so it was inconvenient for him to walk. Zhang Jinjing turned and saw this scene. He smiled and said, It's always like this when you just arrive. I'll walk slower. You can get used to it. Zichen smiled gratefully and followed with difficulty. Zhang Jinjing took the initiative to say, You were brought in directly by the three Earth Soul Realm experts from before, right? Zichen nodded. Zhang Jinjing said with some envy, If that's the case, there must be a general-level expert among the three of them. Zichen asked in confusion. General-level expert? What do you mean? Zhang Jinjing was obviously not surprised by Zichen's confusion. It was normal for people who came here to not understand the division of the system. He explained, All the Earth Soul Realm experts who enter the battlefield are only at the soldier level. Only by obtaining enough military merits can they be promoted to the general level and lead a small team. However, this is only the majority of people. There are some special existences. When they come here and pass the test, they already have the strength of the general level. Or some geniuses who became famous early and were recognized by others early on can also be granted the qualification of the general level and advance after coming here. And these people are qualified to bring a human soul realm expert here to train in advance. After hearing the other party's explanation, Zichen finally understood why those human soul realm experts looked at him with strange gazes. He had come in through the back door. Then under normal circumstances, how can one come here? Zichen asked. Now that I've gotten used to the suppression of the laws outside, my movements are no longer hindered. Furthermore, I've even gained the approval of the gatekeeper outside. Zhang Jinjing smiled and said, The first reason is not necessary. The most important thing is the mood of the gatekeeper. If he says you are qualified, then you are qualified. If he says you are not, then it's not too late to wait and come in. The old man from before? This made Zichen's heart beat faster. This wasn't the first time the other party had said that he wasn't qualified enough. Was it really a mistake for him to come here? The old man from before? Zichen asked. Zhang Jinjing nodded. Because there was only one gatekeeper, there wouldn't be any cognitive errors. It was said that the old man had been looking for a suitable successor to become the next gatekeeper. This made many human souls who came here to try their luck, but none of them caught the old man's eye. Will there be times when he makes a mistake? Zichen asked. Zhang Jinjing hurriedly gestured for him to keep quiet. He warned him in a low voice. Be careful with your words. Lord Gatekeeper possesses remarkable abilities. He is an out-and-out heavenly soul. How could he make a mistake? Heavenly soul? Zichen's expression changed slightly, and he was somewhat shocked. This was because this represented the highest realm in this world. Just like the Saint Venerables in the Saint Spirit domain, they were at the top of the pyramid. How could that ordinary old man with blurred eyes be so powerful? Furthermore, he could hear him just by muttering a few words here and there? Wasn't this a little too strange? However, looking at Zhang Jinjing's serious expression, it clearly didn't seem like he was joking. At the entrance, the old man who was sitting cross-legged had a smile on his face. You little kid, it's one thing to say that this old man is ordinary, but you actually said that this old man's eyes are blurred. This is called reserved, okay? Forget it, I won't argue with this ignorant junior. I don't want to lose face. Your situation belongs to the latter, so there should be some small troubles coming for you. You just need to be more tolerant, because private fights are not allowed here. No matter what happens, private fights are not allowed. Zhang Jinjing pointed in the direction that Wan He and the others had left. If the grudge is too great, then go to the canyon and fight. What should I do next? Zichen gradually caught up with Zhang Jinjing, who had deliberately slowed down his pace. Zhang Jinjing carefully sized up Zichen. In your current state, you should get used to it first. We'll talk about other things when you're free to move. The rest of the journey was all by walking, which gave Zichen more time to get used to it. Along the way, Zhang Jinjing took the initiative to talk about the situation here. For example, most of the workers here were chefs. They needed to cook a strange beast that could only be found in the Death Canyon. Everyone relied on this beast to replenish their energy and maintain their lives. Human soul realm experts were not allowed to participate in the battle. This was a rule that no one could defy. When Zichen asked for the reason, Zhang Jinjing told him that it was because human soul realm experts weren't going to fight at all, but going to their deaths. There were too many corpses in the Death Canyon, so one more didn't matter. There's something more important that I haven't told you, and that's the Death Soul Stone. Speaking of this, Zhang Jinjing's expression became extremely serious. In this blood-red world, there are rules that belong to it. Regardless of whether it's the soul hunters or the soul devourers, once they're killed, they'll leave behind a Death Soul Stone. The Death Soul Stone is both a merit and money. It can also be used as a resource to increase one's realm. It's the most precious thing. Zichen memorized the Death Soul Stone, but it wasn't what he wanted. He was most concerned about the cultivation method. Where can I get the cultivation method? Cultivation method, of course. Zhang Jinjing sighed and then looked up at the sky. When you advance to the Earth Soul Realm and accumulate enough merit, the gate of sky will naturally open for you. There you'll have endless cultivation methods to choose from. Zichen looked up but didn't see the gate of sky. Only with enough merit can you see it and open it. Zhang Jinjing brought Zichen to the place of residence. Fortunately, the place was pretty good. Everyone had a room, and they didn't have to share it. I'll go and make some arrangements. I'll come and find you in 5 days. By the way, what's your name? Zhang Jinjing asked. Zichen said. Zichen. Zhang Jinjing said. I'm only giving you 5 days to adapt. It's indeed a little rushed, but this is the most I can provide. Under normal circumstances, it's 1 day. After feeling his own condition, Zichen said, Thank you. 5 days should be enough. Well, I won't disturb you anymore. Zhang Jinjing said goodbye and left. Zichen didn't have time to feel emotional about all this. He didn't dare to waste any time and began to try his best to adapt. The cultivation method was running, but no power was mobilized. However, Zichen didn't give up and kept persevering. Just as Zichen was trying his best to adapt to this place, he took the 2 girls and took the test. The dazzling light that erupted from the light pillar caused an uproar. Everyone was extremely shocked. In addition to Jindo Wanhee, Lan Gu Meng and Shanya both had the potential to reach the general realm. It was extremely rare to have 3 general realm experts in one day. The 3 of them became the absolute focus of everyone's attention. Although the 2 girls had long been used to being the center of attention, they were still not used to it because they were surrounded by people in the Earth Soul realm. Immediately, an old man walked out and personally received the 3 of them. In just half a day, the news about the 3 of them had spread. It was said that Lan Gu Meng and Shanya voluntarily gave up the opportunity to reach the general realm, and were willing to join Wan He's team. At the same time, 2 unfamiliar Earth Soul realm experts joined them, forming a 5-person team. They didn't immediately participate in the battle. Instead, they first familiarized themselves with everything here, including the rules. Even when they first participated in the battle, someone had to secretly protect them. These 3 people with the potential to reach the general realm couldn't have any accidents happen to them in their first battle. That would be a great loss for the soul hunting race. They learned everything about this place, including some secrets. They knew far more than Zichen. They learned about it for 3 days. On the 4th day, they entered the Death Canyon for the first time to adapt to the environment there. Zichen stayed in his room and tried his best to adapt. Although he still couldn't mobilize his power, Zichen, who had been persevering, made great progress. Zhang Jinjing would come twice a day to deliver food to Zichen. Without any power to use, Zichen was like an ordinary person. Every day, he would expend a lot of energy to use his cultivation technique, so he would need to replenish himself with food. It was said that it was the meat of a kind of exotic beast. It was a little raw and didn't taste very good, but it contained a lot of power. A small piece was enough to fill one's stomach. On this day, after Zhang Jinjing brought food to Zichen, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he talked about some things he had heard. 3 general realm experts in one day. That's really amazing. Zhang Jinjing sighed and then opened his mouth. I know about Lord Wanhe. The name of Golden Saber has spread all over this place. Who knows how many powerful people are secretly waiting for him to come. Moreover, he didn't disappoint. Golden Saber successfully advanced to the top 10 and came to the Death Canyon. Zichen had followed Wanhe and heard about the 10th place, but he didn't understand its meaning. He asked curiously, why is Golden Saber in the top 10? Only the top 10 Holy Soul weapons are qualified to become General Realm experts. This is already common knowledge, Zhang Jinjing said. Zichen was very surprised that he was paying attention to the Holy Soul weapon list on the Holy Mountain. Lord Wanhe's weapon level is high enough, but are those 2 beauties high enough? Zhang Jinjing murmured. One is Lan Gu Meng, and the other is Shanya. They look very young and are top beauties. They haven't been famous before. Why are they on the same level as Lord Wanhe? By the way, Zichen, the 3 of them are said to have arrived on the same day as you. You should know them, right? Yes, it was the 3 of them who brought me in. I'm very grateful for that, Zichen said without hiding anything. That's great, Zhang Jinjing said excitedly. Then your relationship must be very good, right? Looking at Zhang Jinjing's excited look, Zichen thought for a moment and said, It's mainly Lord Wanhe who brought me in. As for the 2 of them, they're just ordinary. These words were carefully considered because Zhang Jinjing's expression was obviously not right. Just ordinary is good. You can definitely talk to each other. Zhang Jinjing lowered his head and whispered in Zichen's ear. I have a business deal. Would you like to join in? If you're lucky, you might get a Death Soul Stone. Looking at his shining eyes, Zichen shook his head and said, Not interested. Chapter 3963. Hearing Zichen's unhesitant rejection, Zhang Jinjing became anxious. Don't do that. That's a Death Soul Stone. If you get one, not only will you be able to adapt to this place faster, you might even be able to break through to the Earth Soul Realm. After all, that's the essence of an Earth Soul Realm expert. It's extremely beneficial to us. Zichen shook his head again and said helplessly, I know that the Death Soul Stone is a good thing, but I can't do anything about it. I'm not close to them, Zhang Jingjing said. You don't have to be too close to them. As long as you know them and can pass on the message, it's fine. I promise that you won't be short of benefits. Zichen obviously understood what Zhang Jingjing meant, but he still did not agree. Zhang Jingjing was helpless, but he did not force Zichen. He bid farewell and left. When he reached the door, he shook his head regretfully. How can there be such an unenlightened person in this world? In the room, Zichen smiled. Looks like the two of you are not bad. I might have to rely on the two of you for a long time. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. Zichen walked out of the room for the first time. The pressure here still affected him to a certain extent, but it was not as great as before. He could also move freely. Zhang Jingjing punctually waited at the door and said, It's been arranged. From now on, you'll be in charge of handling the beast meat with the others. Zichen clasped his fists and said, Thank you. Zhang Jingjing smiled and said, Are you really not going to consider that matter? Zichen said helplessly, There's no way to consider it. I'm not close to them. Otherwise, why wouldn't they come to see me? We're really just strangers who met by chance. Zhang Jingjing sized up Zichen as if he was looking at a monster. What? Zichen felt uneasy being stared at. He thought that he had made a mistake somewhere. Zhang Jingjing said, Don't you know? The two fairies are familiarizing themselves with the battlefield. The rules here are far more than usual. They have to abide by all the rules and know all the details. Although they've been to the battlefield once, the higher-ups have forbidden them from taking action. Why? Zichen asked, puzzled. Because it's important. They definitely can't be allowed to take any risks and face any danger. It's said that more than one Heavenly Soul Realm expert is secretly guarding them. They're afraid that they'll be in danger. Zhang Jingjing sighed and said, To tell you the truth, according to the information I received, many seniors regard the two fairies as their treasures. They can't wait to tell them all the threats and rules in this place in advance. If it were an ordinary person, they would have already entered the battlefield. As for the rules and dangers, they would have to figure it out themselves. When Zichen heard this, he was relieved. It seemed that the two of them were in a better situation than Zichen had imagined. The fact that Lan Gu Meng was the goddess of the divine soul still had not spread. This proved that the people here wanted to suppress this matter as a top secret. However, the importance they attached to the goddess of the divine soul did not decrease. Zichen was happy for Lan Gu Meng from the bottom of his heart. Compared to the trap set by the Lan family on the way here, the people here treated her sincerely. This was her home. As for Shanya receiving the same treatment, it was definitely done by those with extraordinary eyesight. This was because Zichen knew that in terms of talent, Shanya, who was favored by the heavens, was not inferior to the goddess of the divine soul. Zhang Jingjing brought Zichen to an extremely large room. Along the way, the human soul realm experts would nod at Zhang Jingjing when they saw him. Zhang Jingjing would also smile in response. It was obvious that he was very popular with people. Zichen, this is the place in charge of dissecting the beast meat. As this is your first time here, the last position is yours. The head here will tell you what you need to do every day. Zhang Jingjing gently waved his hand. A man in a long gown walked over. Zhang Jingjing smiled and said, Di Wu, this is the Zichen that I told you about. Zichen, this is Di Wu, the head here. He is also the manager. Zichen quickly cupped his fists and said, Zichen greets big brother Di Wu. Di Wu smiled like an elegant scholar and said, No need to be so courteous. We are all family from now on. Go over there and familiarize yourself. Zichen nodded and walked towards the last position. In this enormous room, there were at least 100 people dissecting the beast meat. The smell of blood permeated the air. This place was only in charge of the preliminary processing. As for the cooking, it was done by someone else. Just as he arrived at his position, a young butterball came to Zichen. He sized up Zichen and said in a deep voice, Newcomer, call me senior brother. Zichen smiled. Butterball said again, Call me senior brother! Call me senior brother now! Zichen said. Are you sure? He squinted his eyes and there seemed to be sharpness in his eyes. The fatty's body trembled. The imposing manner that he had put on earlier had completely disappeared. His straight back had also drooped down at this moment. Zichen patted him on the shoulder and smiled. That's good. You really didn't put on a good act before. The reason why he was certain that the other party was putting on an act was because when the fatty was on his way here, the few people along the way all looked at him with undisguised disgust. How could such a person be a senior brother? Zichen said. I am Zichen. Don't do such stupid things in the future. Otherwise, people will hate you even more. Butterball snorted and said, Count yourself lucky. I am here to warn you. Be careful in the future. They are very unfriendly to those who came in through connections. Zichen still had the smile on his face. You should use the word warn. That would be more pleasing. Butterball turned and left. The people around him didn't want to see him. Butterball walked to a corner and began to deal with the pile of internal organs. It seemed that his status was lower than Zichen's, the newcomer. Then Zichen realized that the way the people looked at him was a little different. Zichen just smiled at them. Then, like the people beside him, he took a tool and began to dissect. A day passed. Zichen was silent and didn't rest. Naturally, no trouble came to him. During this time, there were some deliberate words, but Zichen didn't take it to heart. In the eyes of the people, this seemed to be taking the initiative to show weakness. Therefore, there was less trouble. After all, Zichen still had a connection, so no one dared to deliberately provoke him. Day after day, Zichen's days were very peaceful. Every day, he could hear news about Shanya and Lan Gu Meng. The two girls had become the focus of everyone's attention. Other than beauties, there were also heroes. It was said that many young geniuses had launched wing attacks towards the two of them, but it was said that they had never received a response. Zichen, who was dissecting the beast meat, couldn't help but shake his head and smile when he heard this news. It seemed that no matter where he went, there would be gossip. Zhang Jingjing didn't come again during this period of time, which made Zichen much quieter. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. It was said that Lan Gu Ming and Shanya had finally remembered all the rules and stepped onto the battlefield. For a moment, everyone was guessing if the two of them had returned empty-handed. On the same day, the team returned successfully. It was said that they had gained something. This news was brought back by those who sent food to the Earth Soul Realm. Some of it was true, while others were fabricated. Originally, Zichen only listened to it as a story. In any case, other than Zhang Jingjing, no one knew that he knew the two girls. But on the day the two girls returned from the battlefield, his peaceful life was broken. Chapter 3964. There were more than 100 people in the operation room. When they found out that Fairy Shanya was outside the door, they were all in disbelief. Then, everyone scrambled to run out of the door. They all wanted to see the beauty of the fairy. Who knew that at this moment, everyone's eyes lit up. Fairy Shanya actually took the initiative to come in. She didn't mind the dirty and messy place and the thick smell of blood. Zhang Jingjing followed beside Shanya with a smile and pride on his face. Diwu quickly came forward. He was also surprised by the appearance of this fairy. After entering, Shanya's eyes quickly looked around. Then, she saw Zichen in the end. He was wearing a special uniform, which was stained with blood. Zichen! She shouted. In the end, Zichen became the focus of everyone's attention. Everyone's gazes were filled with complicated and inexplicable emotions. Butterball, who was far away, was shocked. He looked at Zichen in disbelief. Zichen took off his uniform, turned around, and smiled at Shanya. Then, he walked over. Everyone's eyes were on Zichen as he moved. Their expressions kept changing. "Why are you here?" Zichen asked as he walked closer. "I came to visit you when I had time." "How's it here?" Shanya asked with a smile. At this moment, the entire operation room that was filled with the smell of blood seemed to have brightened up because of Shanya's smile. Not bad. Everyone treats me well, Zichen said. Zhang Jinjing, who was at the side, opened his eyes wide. Didn't this kid say that he wasn't close to the two fairies? Since they weren't close, why did the fairies specially come to visit him? Let's talk outside, Shanya said. Zichen glanced at Diwu. Diwu nodded in tacit agreement. Let's go. Zichen walked forward. Shanya habitually followed behind Zichen. At this moment, Zhang Jinjing was even more dumbfounded. The surrounding people were also stunned. Diwu's expression changed slightly. However, Zichen slowed down very quickly. When Shanya approached him, Zichen deliberately slowed down by half a step. This way, it looked much more normal. Hurry up, I have something good for you. Who would have thought that at this moment, Shania would pull Zichen and walk towards the outer door. Zichen did not turn around, but he could still feel the burning gazes behind him. Big brother, master, God! In the distance, Butterball's eyes were filled with admiration as he tried his best to widen them. Walking out of the door, Shanya let go of Zichen's hand and winked at him playfully. I say, fairy, why do you have to be like this? Zichen couldn't help but smile bitterly. In the past, you were the one who took care of me. From now on, this fairy will take care of you. Shanya smiled and said, See, didn't I help you gain some face just now? Zichen smiled bitterly again. How was that gaining some face? It was clearly gaining a lot of hatred. Let's go to your residence and see if the environment here is good, Shanya said. Let's go. Zichen could only nod. Just as the two of them were leaving, one of them quietly appeared and ran back the way they came from. They went back. Fairy actually followed Zichen back to his residence. As the news spread, there was an uproar in the operation room. Zhang Jinjing was regretful because he felt that he missed out on a big deal. On the other hand, Diwu looked at Zhang Jinjing with a questioning gaze. Zhang Jinjing was annoyed. This Zichen looked honest, why didn't he tell the truth? Looking at his relationship with Fairy Shanya, could he be Fairy's brother? As for lovers, he didn't even think about it. After all, how could a general stage prodigy like a mere human soul stage that wasn't outstanding at all? After returning to Zichen's room, Shanya looked around and said, It's not bad. 1 room per person. Zichen gestured for her to sit down and poured a cup of water for Shanya. He said, What's wrong? Are you in trouble? What do you mean? Shanya didn't understand. Using me as a shield. If you're not in trouble, then what is? Zichen glanced at Shanya and said angrily, I don't understand others, but do you think I don't understand you, fairy? Shanya was a little embarrassed, but she was happy in her heart. It's indeed a little troublesome. Some people are always using various reasons to get close to us. There are even a few heavenly souls who intend to be matchmakers for their juniors. Shanya secretly glanced at Zichen and deliberately raised her voice. Being pursued by so many people and not knowing who to choose is really troublesome. Zichen pretended not to hear her. So you pushed me out. We can't ask Wanhee, right? He doesn't care about anything, and we don't know anyone here. We can only ask you, Shanya said pitifully. It had only been a month since they last met, and this girl had learned how to act. Zichen said helplessly, But I'm only at the human soul stage. Can I stop them? Shanya immediately came forward and said, That's why we brought you something good. At such a close distance, Zichen could even smell the fragrance coming from Shanya's body. 2 Death Soul Stones. I hope you can break through quickly. 1 stone could be obtained from killing an Earth Soul stage expert. Shanya and Lan Gumeng had only been on the battlefield once since they came here. It seemed like these were their spoils of war. Xiaoya was afraid that you would be under too much pressure, so he didn't come. But we've already gotten the message. You have to work hard. We're waiting for you to save us. With that, Shanya put down the Death Soul Stones and walked away. But after taking a few steps, her eyes turned slightly, and she stopped again. She told Zichen some things about the Death Canyon. Other than being careful of the soul-devouring race, you also have to be careful of the strange beasts there. Those strange beasts are also everyone's food source, the ones you decomposed. The canyon is not a real canyon. It's more like a world, or an independent battlefield. Shania said, "It's impossible to fill that battlefield with corpses. The battle between the soul-devouring race and the soul-hunting race will definitely not end. Everyone can die on the battlefield, including those at the heavenly soul realm." On this day, news came that Fairy Shania had left the bloody battle inner city and went to the outer city to find a human soul stage expert. She stayed in his room for 4 hours. When this news came out, it caused an uproar. It should be known that the two fairies had not communicated with outsiders for more than a month since they came here. They were very aloof. Why did they look for a human soul stage expert? For a moment, everyone began to ask about the human soul stage expert's name and background. Zichen had not broken through yet, nor had he advanced, but his reputation had spread. Many Earth soul stage experts even began to pay attention to Zichen, wanting to know more about him. The gatekeeper at the entrance shook his head and said, "Young man, your training has begun. Actually, it's best for you to take a step back now. You don't have the strength, but you still want to show off. That's a bad idea." With a loud bang, Zichen's door was kicked open, and an ear-piercing sound was heard. Chapter 3965. Zichen, who was cultivating with his legs crossed, opened his eyes. His eyes were calm, and there were no other emotions in them. He heard the other party's hurried footsteps earlier, so Zichen wasn't surprised at all. He even kept the Death Soul Stone in advance. Zichen accepted the 2 Death Soul Stones given by Shania. He didn't reject them as he wanted to speed up his growth. He looked at the sky. It wasn't time for work yet, but he didn't argue. He stood up and walked out. He knew the person standing at the door angrily. He was called Weihua. He had a bad temper usually and used words to bully Zichen before. Zichen took a glance at Weihua, then took his work uniform and went to work. Only Di Wu was there when he arrived. There was no one else other than him. Zichen nodded slightly at Di Wu, then walked to his workstation. Di Wu said indifferently, "Your mission today is to dissect 50 mutated beasts." "Got it." Zichen replied indifferently and picked up a mutated beast to dissect it. There was a figure moving around in the corner. Zichen glanced at that direction and realized it was the unwelcome Butterball. Butterball had endless work every day, and it was very tiring. However, Zichen didn't expect him to come so early. Looking at Butterball's indifferent expression, it shouldn't have been a day or 2 ago. This made Zichen, who was feeling uncomfortable earlier, feel better. Compared to the most annoying and most tiring Butterball, his situation was much better. Butterball seemed to have noticed Zichen's gaze. He turned around and looked at Zichen, then gave him a gloating smile. Zichen glared at Butterball and turned around to work. Originally, no matter how hard he worked, he could only dissect 30 mutated beasts a day. Today, he increased it to 50. Not only did he have to wake up early, but he also had to return late. It seemed like trouble had come knocking on his door. Zichen started to decompose while Di Wu watched from afar like a competent supervisor. 2 hours later, everyone arrived. When they saw that Zichen had already dissected the beast's meat, everyone was slightly startled. In the end, they smiled indifferently. This brat was too arrogant. Just because he knew the fairy, he didn't put anyone in his eyes. Usually, when they met, he would just nod and not even say a word. Now, he was being targeted. There was no doubt that everyone was rejoicing in his misfortune. Originally, there were some who wanted to build a good relationship with Zichen, but at this moment, they secretly gave up on this idea. At noon, Butterball came in with food. "Boss said that you have a lot of work to do. Don't rest at noon. Continue." Zichen picked up the food and sat down to eat. Without any energy to circulate in his body, Zichen, who had been busy all morning, was famished. Everyone else had gone to eat, so the entire operation room seemed empty. Butterball was also at the side, eating and laughing. What are you laughing at? Zichen asked. Of course I'm laughing at you. You're worse off than me now, Butterball said. Zichen said indifferently. Worse off than you? Are you sure? I'm only working overtime today. Butterball extended a finger and shook it. No, you're starting to work overtime today, not just today. Zichen's expression was still calm. At most, it won't be more than half a month. Butterball laughed. Seems like you still have some self-awareness, but you don't understand this place. If you're like this the first time, you'll be very miserable next time. Trust me, it'll be very, very miserable. Zichen glanced at the proud Butterball and said, So what if it's miserable? Aren't you here too? You should have woken up earlier than me. That's different. I can get off work any time. I don't have a fixed workload. Unlike you. Then, little Butterball extended his head and asked mysteriously, Are you really close to the fairy? How did you know each other? Not close, I don't know her. Listening to Zichen's perfunctory tone, Butterball said discontentedly, Zichen, you should be happy now that I'm in front of you and can be your friend. Do you think there's anyone else in this place other than me who would talk to you? So, you should be grateful. Why don't you hurry up and answer my questions? I think you can get out of here. Zichen finished eating and continued to work. Today's workload was indeed not small. Butterball sat there alone, chuckling. He was not angry because he finally had a friend, and that was Zichen, who was also not liked by others. In this place, only he was willing to be Zichen's friend. Similarly, only this kind of Zichen could be his friend. Butterball's so-called friend was just a companion at work. He returned to his original position and continued to deal with the smelly internal organs. Zichen, the one who came last time, was the fairy Shanya. Do you know the fairy Lan Gu Meng? Butterball's voice sounded in the distance. Of course, Zichen did not respond. The other party did not seem to want Zichen to respond and continued to speak. The fairy took the initiative to hold your hand last time. Did you feel very happy? Did you feel like fainting in an instant? The fairy took the initiative to hold your hand and did not avoid it at all. Do you know how many people's eyes were fixed at that time? How many people wanted to replace her? Listening to the other party's noisy words, Zichen said impatiently, That's nothing. The fairy Shanya you speak of wanted to marry me, but I rejected her. Butterball clicked his tongue and said, Kid, your big words are too funny. You should say it when there are more people. I believe everyone will laugh until their teeth fall out. Then you can pick up all your teeth on the ground. Seeing that Zichen did not respond, Butterball said again, By the way, Zichen, do you think you are the brother of the fairy Shanya? Or a relative? Otherwise, why would the fairy not avoid you? It is said that there are many handsome men who want to strike up a conversation with the fairy inside, but they are all rejected. The fairy is cold to everyone, but in front of you, she actually shows a charming fairy smile. In the operation room, other than the sound of the analysis, there was only Butterball's words. Often, he would say 8 or 10 sentences, and Zichen would not respond. However, compared to being alone in the past, it was much better. At least he had a companion. That night, Zichen finished his work for the day. At the same time, Butterball also stood up and stretched. Diwu, who had been standing there until the end, said indifferently, Today's performance is not bad. Continue tomorrow, the quantity will remain the same. When the fatty heard this, he chuckled and gloated. Zichen, on the other hand, did not take it to heart. After returning to his room, he felt tired. He took out the Death Soul Stone and started refining it. On the second day, Zichen woke up early and went to the operation room without being called. Butterball had already started his work. He was indeed working harder than everyone else. Welcome, welcome. Seeing Zichen coming in, Butterball smiled. After Zichen came in, Diwu came in too. He stood there for almost an entire day. 3 days had passed. Zichen completed the analysis according to the rules every day. It seemed to be getting easier and easier. On the 4th day, Diwu said, Increase the quantity today, 60. Chapter 3966. Looking at Zichen's reluctant look, Diwu sneered. Why? You're not willing? Butterball, who was far away, quickly winked at Zichen, as though telling him not to be rash. Seems like you really don't care about everyone. Are you really that naive to think that you can do whatever you want here just because you know a fairy? Diwu's gaze towards Zichen gradually turned cold. From now on, you have to dissect 65 mutated beasts before you can rest. Finishing his words, Diwu turned and left. Butterball, who was far away, ran over. He looked at Zichen and said, Zichen, you're too rash. In this place, Diwu is the god, no one can control him. Even Zhang Jinjing, who brought you here last time, didn't dare to make things difficult for Diwu. You could rest after dissecting 60 mutated beasts. Now you have to dissect 5 more. Butterball patted Zichen's shoulder and gave him an expression that said, Good luck to you, I can't help you even if I want to. However, after turning around, he started to gloat. Because according to the current situation, Zichen would have to wake up early again tomorrow. Perhaps the two of them could come together again. Zichen already expected to be targeted, but he didn't expect Diwu to have such a huge reaction when he frowned. Moreover, Zhang Jinjing didn't come again after a few days. It seemed like he had given up on that business. The sabers in Zichen's hands were special in this region. Every one of them was a soul weapon, and they were of extremely high grade. Zichen even guessed that their grade might be on par with the black rod that didn't advance. On this day, Butterball still talked a lot of nonsense. Those human souls who came at the usual time were still gloating. However, no one mocked Zichen intentionally anymore. It seemed like everyone was waiting for something. For example, the fairy's return? Diwu stood at the door again, supervising everyone's work. When it was mealtime, Butterball took the initiative to deliver food again. There were only 2 people in the huge operation room. The 2 of them squatted there and ate. Butterball, who couldn't stay still, once again asked about the fairy Shanya. Zichen couldn't be bothered to listen anymore. He interrupted the other party and asked, Butterball, why do you have to do so much work? Butterball chewed the meat and said vaguely, Because I'm annoying. Zichen looked at Butterball with a strange expression. Butterball quickly swallowed the food in his mouth and said, I'm just kidding. Don't take it seriously. You think this is a very unpleasant job, right? Actually, that's not the case. Many people fought for it, but unfortunately, none of them had the ability. In the end, it was mine. Speaking of this matter, Butterball had a complacent look on his face. It was as if this job was a great honor, and he had fought for it all the way. Zichen said sincerely, Your acting skills are on par with Fang Wulian, but your skin is much thicker than his. Who's Fang Wulian? Butterball asked. A friend of mine, Zichen said. Butterball's eyes lit up and said, So you're saying that you treat me as a friend too? Pretend I didn't say anything. Zichen continued to eat with his head lowered. This damn Butterball is still not telling the truth. Why is everyone fighting for this stupid job? Are they all blind? After eating, Zichen continued to work. Butterball also ran to another corner to deal with the mutated beast's innards. No matter how one looked at it, it wasn't a job that many people would fight for. After dinner, everyone left. Zichen continued his unfinished work. Diwu watched for 2 hours before leaving. Butterball didn't leave either. When Zichen finished his work, Butterball stood up and the 2 of them left together. It was the same for the next 2 days. On the way back, Zichen looked at Butterball and said, Damn Butterball, tell me honestly. Are you a spy sent by Diwu? If I don't complete the task, you'll expose me, right? Butterball looked wrong. I've been doing this job for so many years. Could it be that Diwu has the ability to predict the future and knew that Zichen would come? It's good that you're not. If I find out that you're a spy, I'll beat you up. Zichen raised his fist. Butterball's body trembled subconsciously and dodged. He seemed to have suffered a lot like this before. Look at your cowardly face. If someone beats you up in the future, raise your fist and beat them back. Zichen loosened his fist. But I can't beat them, and they have more people. Butterball said, feeling wronged. Zichen's eyes suddenly turned cold. If you can't beat everyone, then catch the one who bullied you and beat him to death. Butterball shrunk his neck and said, Fighting is not allowed here, not to mention a fight to the death. This is the rule. Get lost. Zichen waved his sleeve and gave Butterball a get lost as a reward. Then he walked back to his room. After returning to his room, he continued to refine the Death Soul Stone. The energy contained in a piece of Death Soul Stone was completely out of Zichen's imagination. Just as Zichen was getting familiar with it, Diwu said again one morning, Break down 70 of them today. With another 5, the workload increased again. This time, Zichen didn't argue because he had experience. Even if his expression changed, Diwu would purposely increase the number. Moreover, Diwu would supervise him. Even when he wasn't around, Butterball would still be around. This made Zichen suspect that Butterball would expose him. 75, 80. The number was still increasing. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Zhang Jingjing didn't come, and no one else came to look for him. According to Zichen's estimation, this display of power seemed to be taking too long. In the blink of an eye, a few days had passed. Zichen could already break down 80 of them in a day. His speed was much faster than before. But on the second day, Diwu increased the number to 100 per day. This time, he didn't even give Zichen a chance to reject him. He turned and left. Zichen was left alone, and the sky had just begun to brighten. Butterball walked over from the side. This time, he didn't mock Zichen. Instead, he said with pity, You're in trouble, breaking down 100 per day. It has been many years since someone like you appeared. Zichen frowned and fell into deep thoughts. Did I estimate wrongly? After this display of power, he didn't tempt me with benefits. Is he waiting for me to give in and take the initiative? Just then, Butterball picked up Zichen's saber. Your method of breaking down seems to be wrong. Try this and see if you can break it down faster. Zichen dismissed the thought in his mind and looked at Butterball. He wouldn't give involuntarily. Different situations call for different actions. Butterball held the saber with his right hand. Veins appeared on the back of his hand as if he was accumulating strength. It's said that those outstanding general-level existences had a unique way of breaking down meat at an extremely fast speed. Although their current achievements have nothing to do with the way they broke down meat, it's still a beautiful story. Take the current top 10 as an example. Even the 10th person, Yao Yi, had a record of 150. Butterball turned to look at Zichen and said, It's 150 at a normal time. You don't have to wake up early to work overtime and rest at noon. You can even leave early at night. Butterball shook his hand gently. A ray of light shone from the saber in his hand. The saber was placed horizontally on the meat that had its internal organs removed. With another shake of his hand, a skillful force was activated through the saber, and the entire rack of meat flew up. Butterball had a rare serious expression on his face. He was like a swordsman who had studied swordsmanship for many years. When he raised his saber, a cold ray flickered. Chapter 3967. Shanya, long time no see. Did you go hunting again? How did it go? A young man in white stood on the road in front of the mountain. He held a folding fan in his hand and had a handsome face. He looked very confident and at ease. With her path blocked, Shanya stopped. She glanced at the other party and asked, Who are you? The smile on the young man's face did not diminish. I'm Yao Yi, one of the 10 general talents. Shanya said lightly. I've never heard of him, and I don't know him. What about you? Have you heard of him? Shanya looked back at Lan Gumeng, who was walking over. Lan Gumeng said, I've heard of someone called Car Steward. He seems to be one of the 10 talents. By the way, what rank did you say you were? 10th, Yao Yi. The smile on Yao Ye's face was a little forced. I've never heard of him, and we're not familiar with him. Don't block the way, Lan Gumeng said lightly. Yao Ye's face was a little distorted. He said indifferently, My grandfather is immortal Tianju. Lan Gumeng looked back at Yao Yi. We know about immortal Tianju, but we really don't know about you. After that, the two women left. It was extremely rare to be able to talk so much with Yao Yi. You'll regret it. The humiliated Yao Ye's eyes were spitting fire. The knife was a boning knife. It was special. It was very sharp and shiny. The moment Butterball took out the knife, Zichen had a whole new level of respect for him. He did not expect that Butterball, who was hated by everyone, was actually a great swordsman. Was the work of handling the internal organs of exotic beasts all day long really a job that everyone competed for? Just when Zichen was doubting himself and looking at Butterball with a new level of respect, he saw the shining knife light was submerged by the meat. Then, the meat hit Butterball's head. Butterball screamed. Save me! Butterball, whose head was covered by the meat, began to scream. Zichen shook his head and dispelled all his previous misconceptions. He took the meat from Butterball's head. Butterball put down the boning knife and said awkwardly, I'm just giving you a demonstration. I remember that Yao Yi did this before. After saying that, Butterball turned around and ran away. It was obvious that he had screwed up this time. Zichen stood in place and didn't mock Butterball. Although the result was a little comical, Butterball's previous actions had given Zichen a lot of inspiration. Perhaps he could change his train of thought or try a different method. In the distance, Butterball saw that Zichen didn't speak for a long time, so he plucked up his courage and said, There used to be a driver who could decompose 200 animals a day. It's said that he even learned a new technique because of that. Zichen closed his eyes and recalled Butterball's previous actions in his mind. He seemed to have been inspired. Butterball stood in the distance and looked at Zichen, who was deep in thought. He muttered, It can't be, right? He really learned something? Butterball had obviously screwed up earlier, but he had given Zichen a lot of inspiration. At this moment, that scene replayed in Zichen's mind. However, it wasn't Butterball who had made the knife move. Instead, it was the speed and strength of the knife moving through the air, as well as the speed of the exotic beast's descent. After standing like that for a quarter of an hour, Zichen opened his eyes. During this time, Butterball had been staring at Zichen the whole time. When he saw him open his eyes, he instantly picked up the piece of meat from before with the knife. The meat flew up, and he made 3 slashes in the air. On the 4th time, he used the knife to carry the meat down and return to the table. The efficiency was very slow. If this continued, Zichen would definitely not be able to finish his work. However, Zichen didn't care. He tried again and again until someone was about to come. He continued to scrape the bones according to the normal method. At the same time, he was thinking about the problem of making the knife move earlier. When the people who came to work saw that Zichen hadn't even finished dissecting an exotic beast, they all had strange expressions on their faces. According to his usual routine, Zichen had already dissected a few exotic beasts by now. Diwu appeared at the door and saw the situation in front of Zichen as well. His expression didn't change much, and he only glanced at Butterball. At this moment, Butterball was focused on his work. At noon, the others left. Butterball brought food over. He looked at Zichen, who was deep in thought, and said, You can't do this. You won't be able to finish your work today. Zichen took the food and started eating. He was still thinking about something in his mind. Don't tell me he's possessed, Fatty muttered. After finishing his food at his fastest speed, Zichen continued to try out the newest dissecting method. He practiced over and over again, but he didn't even finish half of his dissecting task today. According to Zichen's current speed, he would probably have to work overtime until midnight. After Butterball finished his food, he walked to Zichen silently and helped him to dissect the exotic beasts. Zichen glanced at Butterball. Butterball said, What are you looking at? I told you, I have a lot of freedom in my work. You, on the other hand, can forget about resting if you can't finish dissecting 100 beasts today. Butterball continued. Don't underestimate the workload for a day. If you can't finish it today, you won't be able to rest well. It'll be worse the next day. In the end, your spirit will collapse. Zichen patted Butterball's shoulder and smiled. Then, he continued to experiment with the knife. Butterball stood at the side and helped Zichen to dissect the exotic beasts. Zichen's speed of dissecting the beasts increased significantly. He also gained a new understanding of the sharpness of the knife and the toughness of the meat. It could be said that Butterball had helped him open a door. As for what was behind this door, he had to explore it himself. However, this exploration process was extremely difficult. Even with Butterball's help, Zichen's return was delayed by a lot. Zichen was already exhausted when he returned to his room. However, he didn't dare relax in the slightest as he continued to refine the Death Soul Stone. Compared to the others, Zichen, who possessed the Death Soul Stone, was much luckier. His body, which had been suppressed by his power, was constantly absorbing the energy within the Death Soul Stone. Although there weren't any visible changes, the exhaustion he had felt when he had returned was completely swept away. Zichen opened his eyes when the sky started to brighten. His mental state had already recovered to its peak. He glanced at the Death Soul Stone in his hand. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt like he had used up a lot of energy the night before. After washing up, Zichen left his room and went to work while the sky was still slightly bright. Butterball hadn't arrived yet, so Zichen was obviously the first to arrive. He continued to try out the insights he had gained the day before. Every time he tried, he would make other adjustments after dissecting the knife so that his body, which didn't have much energy, could be accurate down to the smallest detail. After about an hour, Butterball arrived late. When he saw Zichen, he was a little shocked. However, he was even more surprised. He walked over and said, "Are you really going to try it? I was just joking with you yesterday." Zichen ignored him. He had been around for too long, so his control over his power was far beyond Butterball's imagination. He knew what he was doing. However, everything was difficult at the beginning. Once he mastered the technique, everything that followed would be twice the result with half the effort. After practicing for 2 hours, Zichen started to break it down. Butterball had an endless amount of work to do every day, so Zichen didn't want to take up his time. Chapter 3968. Diwu was the manager of this place. He was also Zichen's current boss. He was in charge of over 100 people. He had been the manager for many years and saw many human spirit realm experts advancing and joining the battlefield. Some died in battle, some advanced. But for some reason, Diwu himself didn't break through. And he didn't seem to be in a hurry. He was very relaxed every day and almost didn't cultivate. Diwu, who was sitting there drinking tea, took a glance at the person who came and said, "I'm not slow, that kid is too tough." "Willful? He dares to be willful in front of you?" Spirit Realm said unhappily. "It's toughness," Diwu said. "You know he came in through connections. How long has he been here? I've already arranged for him to dissect 100 a day. He's also working overtime. Back then, you could only dissect 100 until you left, right?" Spirit Realm said. "That's different. I'm different from him. I didn't work overtime. My speed is much faster than his." "No, you have to continue forcing him and make him break down. Either he comes to you or asks for help from Fairy Shanya." Diwu took a glance at her spirit realm and said, "Shingui, you're a warrior, why do you have to do this?" Shingui said, "You'll understand when you get on the battlefield. Let me tell you the truth, Yao Yi is determined to get Fairy Shanya. You're just a small interlude. If you do it well, Yao Yi will naturally reward you. If you don't, you'll make Yao Yi unhappy. The most important thing is still Spiritual Master. I heard Spiritual Master already took the initiative to facilitate their relationship." Diwu said, "Spiritual Master won't interfere in this matter." "Then let's wait and see." Shingui laughed. "I've already passed the message, do as you see fit." As he spoke, Shingui bowed down and said, "Diwu, when I first came here, you were just a manager who managed over 100 of us. After so many years, how many of us have become Earth's soul realm experts and entered the battlefield to obtain merits? What about you? Why are you still a lousy manager? Don't you have other pursuits? Or should I say, is this the extent of your talent? Think about it, the chance to change your fate is right in front of you. Shingui left. Diwu looked at his back view and shook his head. When immortals fight, mortals suffer. The most important thing is that these little ghosts are extremely difficult to deal with. He left the room and walked towards the console room. Everyone else had left, leaving only Zi-Chen and Butterball behind. Zi-Chen was still trying out new decomposition methods over and over again, while Butterball was working on the other side. After watching for a while, Diwu left. That night, Zi-Chen left very late. He was the first to arrive and the last to leave. The next day, they continued. 5 days later, one soul stone was completely consumed. On this day, Shanya came looking for Zi-Chen again. Diwu said, "Go, remember to finish your work." He did not embarrass Zi-Chen. The two of them left together and went to Zi-Chen's residence again. "How is it?" Shanya sat on Zi-Chen's bed and swung her legs. Zi-Chen said, "It's all right, how about you guys?" "We're fine too, we don't feel much pressure as long as we don't give them a good look. Although the seniors in Heavenly Soul Realm wanted to matchmake us, they didn't force us and only said to leave it to fate. Little Mute and I are worried about you, after all, the others don't think so." "Don't worry, I'm fine too." "Really?" "Of course." Looking at Zi-Chen's relaxed expression, Shanya nodded and continued. "This is a Death Soul Stone." Zi-Chen interrupted her. "I still have one with me, I don't need it now, you guys can refine it yourselves." After being here for so long, Zi-Chen understood the Death Soul Stone. It was an extremely precious item. "Take it. You need it more than anything else right now," Shanya said. "After all, the two of us still need to rely on you. If you can't handle the pressure and push us out, where can we find a backer?" Shanya rolled her eyes and said, "Or do you really want us to get married?" Zi-Chen thought about it and said, "If there's really someone suitable, let's take a look first. We'll talk about it when we meet one." Zi-Chen only left one Death Soul Stone behind. After bidding farewell to Shanya, he returned to the control room. Everyone still looked at him with strange gazes. Zi-Chen was expressionless as he analyzed silently. Shingui knocked on the door and walked in at Yao Ye's residence. Fairy Shanya went to look for Zi-Chen again. She only stayed for an hour this time. She was quite happy when she left. "I didn't see anything unusual," Shingui said. "What about now?" Yao Ye asked. "I heard he's cultivating," Shingui said. Yao Ye's eyes turned cold. "Seems like he's quite capable. Go look for Diwu now and tell him I'm very disappointed in this matter. Ask him to take care of himself." "Yes." Shingui went to look for Diwu and expressed Yao Ye's intention with a tough attitude. Diwu said helplessly, 100 beasts is already Zi-Chen's limit. If it was someone else, they wouldn't be able to complete this mission. If there's more and something happens midway, not only will I be punished, you won't be able to run away by then." "This is your answer?" Shingui squinted his eyes. "Diwu, remember, you're only their leader, not mine. If I want to deal with you, I just need to move my fingers, right? If Yao Yi wants to deal with you, it's even easier, he just needs to move his mouth," Shingui said firmly. "I don't care what method you use, you must make Zi-Chen beg for mercy. As long as you accomplish this, you won't be short of benefits in the future." "Alright, I'll try." Diwu could only respond. Shingui left. He had to look for Zi-Chen in the control room again. Even if it was just for show, it was fine. Zi-Chen was still dissecting the beast meat silently. He looked calm and didn't complain. After looking at it for an hour, he turned around and left, but didn't say anything. The second day, the third day, the fourth day. Time flew by. The calmer Shanya was, the greater the pressure on Diwu's side. Diwu visited Zi-Chen a few times. He could feel Zi-Chen's improvement, but he didn't break through the limit. He didn't understand, why didn't anyone stop this from happening? Could there really be an enlightened master involved? On this day, Yao Yi came personally. He looked at Di Wu and said indifferently, "Boss, you've disappointed me." Back when Yao Yi was still in the human soul realm, Di Wu was in charge. "There's no choice. Everything has to be done according to the rules. This is Zichen. If it was someone else, their soul spirit would have collapsed, and they would have died." Dissecting the beast meat seemed normal, but it consumed a lot of soul spirit. Zichen was definitely the first to achieve such an achievement in less than a month. Even Yao Yi didn't have this ability in the past. Of course, it was also thanks to the Death Soul Stone given by Shanya. If not, Zichen wouldn't have insisted on not going. "Continue to increase. I'll take responsibility if anything happens. This time, I must make him lower his head in front of me," Yao Yi said. "This is an order, you must obey it." Di Wu sighed and went to the control room to look for Zichen. When he came to the door, he saw Zichen standing there. He took a deep breath, exerted strength in his wrist, and lifted the beast's body with his blade. The beast's body flew high up. Zichen tapped his foot and flew up. In his hand, a blade light flashed. 1 blade, 2 blades, 3 blades. Chapter 3969. Horizontal slash, downward slash, saber light flashing. Every slash landed on a different part of the body, and the strength was different. Sometimes it was weak, sometimes it was strong. There was not much waste. Butterball stood up and widened his eyes in shock. How many years had it been since he last saw such a scene? He did not expect that he would really comprehend it. How long had it been? Butterball was very shocked. This was from the bottom of his heart. After coming here, he became the most disliked existence. He had seen too many geniuses. Some had already fallen, and some had become insignificant figures. For example, Yao Yi could decompose 150 beasts a day when he was still in the human soul realm. However, the method he used was not the same as Zichen's. Moreover, it took him several years to reach this step. However, how long did Zichen take? It was less than a month. Although his speed was not as fast as Yao Yi's, his comprehension was much better than Yao Yi's. In Butterball's opinion, even the caretaker might not have Zichen's comprehension. Zichen's body landed on the ground, and the beast's body followed suit. About 1/5 of it had been decomposed. His breathing gradually quickened. He had used a total of 38 slashes and had consumed a lot of energy. Out of the 38 slashes, only 1 slash had a good grasp of the strength. The other 37 slashes were either too light or too heavy. Zichen was reflecting. "Zichen, you're good!" Butterball came to Zichen's side and exclaimed excitedly. "Can I?" Zichen's forehead was already sweating. Although it was only 38 slashes, the energy consumed was completely beyond imagination. "Of course," Butterball said excitedly. "Just this move alone is enough to suppress all the heroes." Zichen laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "Out of 38 slashes, only 1 passed. Do you think it's great?" Butterball nodded again, very sure. Zichen was a little speechless, but he did not argue anymore. He continued to regulate his breath and prepared for the next slash. About 10 minutes later, Zichen slashed for the second time. This time, he learned his lesson from before and slashed 50 times. Then the third time, the fourth time, each time better than the last. Zichen spent less than a quarter of an hour to decompose 1. It seemed that his speed wasn't as fast as a normal decomposition, but this was only the first day of Zichen's comprehension. It would only get faster and faster in the future. Butterball turned around and realized that Di Wu, who was originally standing there, had already left. After a short break, Zichen continued to attack with his saber. This time, his speed was faster, and his control of strength was more precise. After dissecting 5 of them in a row, Zichen clearly felt weak. He immediately took out the Death Soul Stone. He did not avoid Butterball, and just like that, he recovered. Butterball naturally noticed this. He ran over again and stared at the Death Soul Stone in Zichen's hand. "Zichen, where did you get this Death Soul Stone?" Butterball asked excitedly. "With your current strength, it's impossible for you to obtain such a thing. After 15 breaths, Zichen opened his eyes. The energy in the Death Soul Stone kept entering his body and recovering his energy. The recovery speed was faster than elixirs in the outside world. Is this thing very valuable? Zichen kept the Death Soul Stone. Butterball curled his lips and said, What do you think? Zichen, with your current situation, it's impossible for you to obtain the Death Soul Stone. Tell me, did Fairy Shanya give it to you? She's your relative, right? Zichen ignored him and continued to gather his energy to decompose the next mutated beast. After grasping the entry-level method, the next step was to familiarize himself with it. This was nothing to Zichen. With the Death Soul Stone's recovery, Zichen's decomposition speed became faster and faster. Today's mission was completed earlier than usual, and Zichen was still full of energy when he returned. After returning, Zichen continued to refine the Death Soul Stone to strengthen himself. The next day, Zichen woke up early and went to the operation room. Butterball also came early and watched Zichen perform his blade. At this moment, Zichen could perform close to 100 slashes at once, which was a huge improvement compared to yesterday. Seems like the Death Soul Stone is really extraordinary. Your improvement speed is really fast, Butterball exclaimed. By the time everyone had arrived, Zichen had already dissected 30 of them, which made them extremely surprised. Diwu walked to the door and said, Zichen, your mission today is 110 slashes. Zichen didn't say anything. Those surprised people laughed again. It seemed like Diwu was determined not to let Zichen rest. However, after Zichen performed his blade, everyone's smile froze. In an instant, he performed more than 100 slashes. The dazzling light dazzled everyone. Zichen landed on the ground and started to rest. After recovering, he continued to perform his blade slashes. He realized that his recovery speed seemed to be speeding up. His endurance in performing his blade slashes was also getting stronger. Even the time he could stay in the air was lengthened. On this day, Zichen completed his mission. Although he worked overtime, it was much easier than usual. On the next day, Diwu didn't continue to increase the number of slashes. Zichen used this day to increase his proficiency. His improvement was huge every day. Everyone saw it and was shocked. Of course, there was a price to pay for the improvement. The second Death Soul Stone's power was depleted. A few days passed in the blink of an eye. The number of slashes Zichen performed was also increasing. However, as his proficiency increased, this was no longer a big deal to him. Yao Yi came to look for Zichen for the second time to express his dissatisfaction. Diwu looked at Yao Yi and replied, His workload is already 150 slashes. What do you think I should do? I remember that this should be your record, right? Also, it's a record after you came here for a few years. Yao Yi said coldly. You're not going to cooperate? Diwu said. Yao Yi, you've always been so domineering because you're protected by a true master. Of course, you've also displayed your abilities. But I want to tell you that this is Blood Battle City. We have our own rules. You can be willful occasionally, but you can't act recklessly. This is your answer to me. Yao Ye's gaze became even colder. This is a warning to you. Diwu lifted his head and looked at Yao Yi. As for an answer, you're actually not qualified for me to give you an answer. What did you say? Yao Ye's eyes were already filled with coldness. The reason why I've been cooperating with you these days is because I cherish talents. I have the intention to train Zichen. Perhaps after many years, there'll be another talented general in Death Valley, or another candidate for the 10 talents. Diwu waved his hand and said, Leave. I have my own arrangements regarding Zichen. He already gave the order to chase him out. Diwu, I thought highly of you, so I came to look for you. I didn't expect you to be so unappreciative. Don't blame me for being impolite. Yao Yi left with a gloomy expression. Zichen's path back to his residence was blocked by someone. It was Wei Hua. Beside him were 4 fat and muscular men. Their gazes were extremely unfriendly. Zichen looked at the 5 of them and smiled. Kid, you're still acting dumb, right? Let me tell you, this trick is useless in front of me. Wei Hua walked forward and clenched his fists. The other four surrounded Zichen. Zichen said, You've misunderstood. What I meant was, thank you for coming because I've also endured for a long time. After speaking, Zichen threw out a punch without any hesitation. Martial arts. Even if he couldn't use his power, he still had his skills. Banging sounds could be heard continuously, and there were even wails. 1 against 5. The 5 of them were defeated easily. Chapter 39-70. He punched and pulled back his fist. Zichen did an unnecessary action like abdomen and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He looked at the 5 people who were in pain. How satisfying! He walked forward. Wei Hua was so frightened that he quickly dodged. At this moment, his eyes were filled with fear. Zichen was too strong. His punches were too fast and heavy. He could not react at all. 5 against 1, but they could not even touch the corner of his clothes. As he walked past Wei Hua, Zichen suddenly turned around and looked at them. The few of them shuddered in fear again. Thank you. There are not many good people like you in this world, Zichen said gratefully. You know I want to beat someone up, so you came to me. Zichen was in a good mood. A smile appeared on the old man's face. His moves are swift and decisive. It looks like the fighting techniques of the sacred mountain. This is interesting. 15 minutes later, Wei Hua's voice sounded outside Zichen's door. Zichen, get out here. Zichen put away the Death Soul Stone, opened the door, and walked out of the room. This time, there was one more person besides the 5 people. That person said, Did you beat them up? Zichen shook his head and said, No. Nonsense. The injuries on our faces and bodies are all caused by you, Wei Hua said angrily. Are you talking nonsense? Zichen looked at Wei Hua. Fighting is forbidden here. Moreover, we haven't spoken more than 3 sentences since we met. Why would I beat you up? You. Wei Hua did not know how to explain. Zichen looked at the other 4. Don't tell me you're also saying that I beat you up? Don't tell me I beat up 5 strangers? After saying that, Zichen returned to his room and closed the door. Don't disturb me. I have to work early in the morning. The other party looked at Wei Hua and asked, Did he really beat you up? Wei Hua nodded and said, I swear. He said he's not familiar with you. Then why did he beat you up? And he beat up the 5 of you by himself? The other party continued to ask. Wei Hua naturally couldn't give a reason, but he insisted that he was beaten. The other party nodded and said, I will report this matter to the higher-ups. The so-called higher-ups referred to Zhang Jingjing. After Zhang Jingjing learned of this matter, he waved his hand and said, I understand. How should we deal with this? The other party asked. Forget it, Zhang Jingjing said. Forget it. They broke the rules. How can we just let it go like this? The person who came was very puzzled. Not only did he fail to beat someone up, he was beaten up instead. After that, he even complained. That Wei Hua can be considered a weirdo. Zhang Jingjing smiled and said, Let's leave it at that. I'll deal with it. The person had no choice but to leave. Zhang Jingjing naturally wouldn't deal with this matter. He had heard about Zichen's recent situation. After knowing that everything was arranged by Di Wu, he didn't do anything unnecessary. Who was Di Wu? Others didn't know, but Zhang Jingjing knew very well. When he became the steward, the elders in his family had warned him repeatedly not to suppress Di Wu just because he had a high position. When Zhang Jingjing asked for the reason, the elders didn't tell him. They only told him not to provoke Di Wu and reminded him repeatedly. He had observed Di Wu for the past few years. Although Di Wu hadn't broken through, he had nurtured many talents. For example, Guan Che, the head of the current generation's 10 heroes. It was said that Guan Che was very respectful to Di Wu. Other than Di Wu, Zhang Jingjing also knew Butterball. He was also in the control room. It was said that he wasn't well liked and was hated by everyone. However, He had also stayed there for a long time, almost comparable to Di Wu. He didn't break through either. It was unknown if he had exhausted his potential. Di Wu didn't increase the number. Zichen's work and rest gradually became regular, but he didn't stop cultivating. He could feel his improvement and growth. Hence, he didn't dare to slack off. Because compared to the others, it was very difficult for Zichen to advance to Earth's soul realm. He was silently increasing the number of people for himself. At the same time, he was pursuing speed and precision. 10 days later, in the control room, a person broke through and advanced to Earth's soul realm. For a moment, all sorts of congratulations were heard. At this moment, the other party left the control room and entered the inner city. He was prepared to understand the rules and participate in the battle. Every day, there would be news regarding Lan Gu Meng and Shanya. It was said that among the 10 elites, several people had launched attacks on the two of them, but they still didn't receive any response. On this day, Zichen, who had returned early, saw a person standing outside his house. After seeing Zichen, that person said indifferently, "You are Zichen?" Zichen sized him up and asked, "Who are you?" The person said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Shingui. I have something to say to you today." Zichen glanced at him and said, "If you have something to say, ask your master to come." Shingui was slightly stunned and asked subconsciously, "Why do you say that?" Zichen looked back at Shingui and said in disdain, "You dare to touch Shanya with your looks?" Shingui's face turned gloomy. "Seems like you are not stupid. You know everything." A cold voice sounded. A handsome young man in white walked out from the darkness. It was Yao Yi. Actually, it wasn't his intention to appear here. It was just that Di Wu was too arrogant and didn't take him seriously. Wei Hu was too stupid. He didn't teach Di Wu a lesson and was beaten up instead. He originally wanted Shingui to come out. After all, he was an Earth Soul Realm expert. Who knew that Shingui would see through him at a glance? "You finally appeared. I thought you were going to be a coward. I was prepared to play with you for a few more days." Zichen looked at Yao Yi and mocked. "Do you want to die?" Yao Yi's eyes had a cold glint. Zichen pointed at his feet and said, "Do you want me to lend you some courage? Let's see if you dare to fight here." Yao Yi's expression changed. Zichen said, "Seems like you don't dare to fight. Then why are you still trying to scare me? Are you stupid?" Just as Zichen finished speaking, the old man guarding the gate laughed. "Tianju, what do you think of this young man?" The old man suddenly said. "He has a glib tongue like a woman. This is a negotiation, not a quarrel." This was Reverend Tianju's reply. Of course, only the two Heavenly Soul Realm experts could hear it. "You are just embarrassed. The grandson you have high hopes for is actually suppressing a human Soul Realm expert." The old man guarding the gate chuckled. "Suppressing? Are you stupid? This little girl is just trying to win with her tongue." Reverend Tianju said unhappily. "This shows that my grandson is focused on cultivation and doesn't care about anything." "Oh, then let's see what kind of result they can come up with today," the old man guarding the gate said with a smile. "Do you know who I am?" Yao Yi really didn't dare to fight here. Not only was Zichen right, but he was also ridiculed. He suppressed his anger and stared coldly at Zichen. This time, Zichen carefully sized up Yao Yi and said, "You're young, your brain isn't very good, and your personality is so arrogant. Since you've been able to survive until now, you obviously have some skills. I guess you should belong to the 10 heroes." Yao Yi's face showed some complacency. The 10 heroes, that was an amazing existence. Zichen continued. "There are strong and weak in the 10 heroes. Those who are ranked at the top should be very steady and cautious. For someone like you who has no brain and no shrewdness, your happiness and anger are all on your face. You can barely enter the 10 heroes. Thanks to the blessing of the ancestors, I guess your real identity should be Yao Yi, who has Reverend Tianhun behind him." Chapter 3971. The old gatekeeper laughed out loud. It was the first time he heard such humorous words. The 10 heroes represented the highest honor. Even if it was the 10th place, it was still a remarkable existence. But in Zichen's mouth, it became sarcastic words. Yao Yi had some complaints about the 10th place. He was once targeted by Shanya and Lan Gumeng. It was as if it was not a supreme honor, but a disgrace. This kid is really ignorant. Sage Tianju's angry voice sounded. It could be imagined that the other party must be fuming. Tianju, why are you angry with a kid? The gatekeeper said. I'm not angry. I'm being reasonable. Every one of the 10 heroes has experienced on the battlefield and used countless honors to prove themselves. How can they be tarnished by a kid? Tianju, don't be angry. I think he's right. If you count backward, your grandson is really the first. Old thing Xiao, do you want to fight with me? The complacency on Yao Ye's face disappeared. His facial features were distorted because of anger. If it were not for the rules here and him being warned countless times, he really wanted to slap the guy in front of him to death. What, did I guess wrong? Zichen smiled and said. Then forget it. I can't guess. You better introduce yourself and tell me why you're looking for me. Xingui, who had appeared previously, had already left after hearing Zichen's sarcastic words. If he heard the latter part, he would probably be scared to death. The identity and title of the 10 heroes were not for ridicule. It represented infinite killing intent. After being scolded by Zichen, Yao Yi was so angry that he forgot the purpose of his visit. He was speechless for a moment. Zichen restrained his smile and said, You're here for Shanya, right? You know? Yao Yi regretted it as soon as the words left his mouth. The other party could even guess who he was. Naturally, he could guess this point. Zichen said, Don't you just want me to pass on your message? Why go through so much trouble? Yao Yi waved his hand, and a ray of light appeared, isolating the surroundings. He said coldly, Since you already know, I will not beat around the bush. Help me pass on the message, and I will give you a piece of Death Soul Stone after you succeed. Zichen pursed his lips and said, You're one of the 10 heroes. Not only are you brainless, but you're also so stingy. You only gave me 1 Death Soul Stone. I thought you would give me 8 or 10. Yao Yi gritted his teeth and said, If this matter really succeeds, I can also give it to you. Zichen shook his head and said, I'm sorry, but I can't help you pass the message to Shanya. Without waiting for Yao Yi to say more threatening words, Zichen changed the topic and said, However, I can help you pass a message to Lan Gumeng. Fairy Lan? Yao Yi was a little surprised. Zichen nodded and said, Yes, is there a problem? Or do you think that Fairy Lan is not as beautiful as Shanya? Yao Yi shook his head, but did not immediately agree. Shanya and Lan Gumeng were equally beautiful, but their temperaments were different. It was reasonable to say that Yao Yi should be happy that Zichen could pass the message. A wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of Zichen's mouth, and he said, If it's Fairy Lan, then I can help you pass the message for free. She can even put in a few good words for you. For example, she can talk about how handsome you are and how kind you are. She will definitely be happy. Yao Ye's expression was still changing. He was not happy, but was worried. On the other side, the gatekeeper said, Tianju, how is it now? The sound insulation technique that Yao Yi activated with a wave of his hand was nothing to the 2 Heavenly Soul Realm experts. This kid has some skills. This time, Sage Tianju did not show any anger. Because Zichen's words and the change in Yao Ye's expression were enough to express a lot of information. Zichen said, You don't know how to choose, right? Yao Yi looked at Zichen. Zichen said indifferently, Do you know why Shanya hates you? How do you know? Yao Yi asked, but this was equivalent to admitting it in disguise. Zichen said, Because you don't like her at all. Why do you pretend to like her and pursue her? Nonsense! Yao Yi said angrily. I really like Fairy Shanya. Zichen smiled and said, Of course, such a beauty, who wouldn't like her after a few more glances? But I guess, among the 10 heroes, there should be many who like Shanya, right? Yao Ye's expression began to change again, but this was equivalent to admitting it. The reason why Shanya is so popular, but Fairy Lan, who is equally beautiful, is not. I guess it's not that no one likes Fairy Lan, but that your elders have orders, right? Zichen said again. This time, Yao Ye's eyes began to flicker. Do you know why? Zichen asked. Yao Yi did not answer, but Zichen also got the answer. The Divine Soul Goddess was still a secret. Even her Heavenly Soul Realm family members were not told. The reason why Shanya had many pursuers was that those elders saw Shanya's extraordinary potential. In addition, Shanya was not as special as Lan Gu Meng, so they all wanted to win Shanya over. Of course, on the surface, it was to form a cultivation companion, but in fact, it was to strengthen their own forces. This was called killing two birds with one stone. Zichen continued. You couldn't find a way with Shanya, so you took a step back and decided to start with me. Think about it, if you know of my existence, how can others not know? It's just that you're too impatient, so you became a clown. Others have been watching you make a fool of yourself, and may be waiting to trick you at any time. Yao Ye's expression was still changing. Zichen continued. Believe it or not, after you come to find me today, someone else will come to find me tomorrow or the day after. However, their attitude will be completely different from yours. When they express their goodwill to me, they might even give me 1 or 2 death soul stones. And these people will all come for Shanya. As for those who have designs on Fairy Lan, they won't come to me. Those who dared to have designs on Lan Gu Meng naturally had great confidence in winning over a divine soul goddess, so there was no need for a mere mortal soul realm cultivator to pass the message. Now that things are clear, I'm going to rest. Zichen turned around and left, returning to his room to continue cultivating. Yao Yi stood there, motionless. How's this kid's mind? The gatekeeper asked. Extraordinary. This was the secret answer. Yao Yi took a deep look at Zichen's residence, then turned around and left. The next day, Zichen didn't go to the operations room, but cultivated in his room. Diwu didn't send anyone to rush him. Butterball came once, worried that something might have happened to Zichen. Zichen also asked Butterball to apply for leave. On that day, several Earth Soul Realms went to the operations room to look for Zichen, but they didn't find him. As for Zichen's residence, some people came, but Zichen didn't see anyone. He was cultivating, and he was in a hurry. Because he wanted to break through quickly. The rules here were very strict, and he dared to treat Yao Yi this way as a mortal soul because of the rules. But the people who set the rules were ultimately people, and where there were people, there would naturally be exceptions, so Zichen was very uneasy. Chapter 3972. A piece of Death Soul Stone contained an enormous amount of energy. Because it was condensed from an Earth Soul Realm life form. Zichen had already refined 2 pieces and was now refining the 3rd one. Judging from his body's absorption speed, he should be able to refine it in about 10 days. Yao Yi never came to look for Zichen again. After returning, he carefully thought about Zichen's words and chose to watch silently. Just as Zichen said, everyone who came to look for Zichen was very polite. Even if Zichen did not open the door, no one forced it. There were even people guarding outside every day. It seemed that in an instant, everyone showed kindness to Zichen. Butterball only came to deliver a meal to Zichen on the first day. After that, this job was taken over by others. However, Zichen only opened the door for Butterball. Everyone else delivered the food outside the door. 5 days later, Shanya came again. Zichen opened the door and gestured for her to come in. I just came back from the battlefield. How's the situation here? Shanya took the initiative to pour herself a glass of water. The situation is good, Zichen said. You have to be careful on the battlefield. Don't be careless. Shanya nodded and said, Indeed, we have to be careful. In Death Canyon, there are not only the soul-devouring clan but also many powerful exotic beasts. They are very difficult to deal with. In addition, the harsh environment can sometimes kill. Shania suddenly turned around and looked at Zichen. Did you know? Last time, there was a team that did not return in time and encountered a death storm. In the end, they were all annihilated. In the face of that storm, no one dared to rescue them. They could only resign themselves to fate. Zichen said. Then you have to be even more careful. Try to get experienced people to join the team. Wan He said the same. Moreover, he has a sense of propriety. With that, Shania took out another 2 pieces of Death Soul stones. Zichen didn't refuse this time. He didn't even hesitate and put it away. Shania was a little surprised. This was not Zichen's style. Zichen explained. I feel that it's useful for me to break through to the next realm. Furthermore, my refining speed has increased a lot recently. Shania smiled. That's good. You're always welcome to join our team. After Shania left, Zichen also ended his cultivation and went to the operation room. With Zichen's arrival, everyone stopped what they were doing and a smile appeared on their faces. One of them stepped forward and said, Zichen, this is your new position. Unlike the last position, Zichen's position was at the very front this time. Everyone's attitude towards him had changed. No, I think that place suits me better. Zichen continued to walk to his original position. Under everyone's gaze, he picked up the familiar knife. He raised his eyebrows. He leaped. He brandished his knife. The saber light flashed, dazzling everyone. When it landed on the ground, one of the beast's bodies had already been decomposed. It was done in one go. Butterball was stunned. Zichen, who had been in seclusion for a few days, had improved even more. With such speed, how much could he decompose every day? Cheers rang out from all around. Diwu, who was far away, revealed a smile on his face. Zichen was expressionless. He adjusted his breath slightly and continued to decompose. At noon, someone invited Zichen to eat, but he rejected. Butterball brought food over. You don't plan to go back? Butterball asked. I'll continue to cultivate. Zichen shook his head and said. You treat your work as cultivation? Butterball laughed. Can't I? Zichen asked back. Sure, I just feel that you're a little strange. Butterball shook his head. Actually, he was very happy because at least he had a companion, even if Zichen did not talk much most of the time. Moreover, it was obvious that Zichen had turned over a new leaf, but he didn't like anyone else. He was the only one who treated him differently. Butterball, why don't you change your job? Zichen glanced at Butterball and asked. Aren't you tired? Butterball said with a smile. This is quite good. A person is free and unrestrained, and no one cares. If it were anywhere else, people would roll their eyes at me. Zichen had been here for a long time, so he naturally knew Butterball's popularity. Therefore, Butterball did not pretend. Zichen put down the food box and patted Butterball's shoulder. Then work hard and cultivate. Hurry up and break through. No! Butterball shook his head and said. Breaking through means going to the battlefield. I'm afraid of death. Zichen was somewhat speechless. He did not even know how to comfort him. He continued to decompose with his saber. To others this might be work, but to Zichen, this was cultivation. An earth soul appeared at the door of the operation room. I thought you would go back to rest and wait for you at the door. I didn't expect you to not go back. Sorry, I may not be able to do anything. Zichen, who did not know the other party, said. But I won't let you come here for nothing. I can help the person behind you to pass a message to Fairy Lan. As for Fairy Shania, I'm sorry I can't help. Butterball was stunned again. Could it be that Zichen even knew Lan Xianzi? And they were also very familiar with each other? He looked up and down at Zichen. There was nothing special about him. In terms of appearance, he was not as handsome as him. How could he have such a good relationship with the two fairies? Butterball could not accept it. He even looked down at himself. He was indeed quite handsome. He felt that God was unfair. The person stood there. When he heard Zichen's words, he did not know how to say the words he had prepared. You can go. Go back and ask the person behind you. Zichen ordered him to leave. The other party could only leave because the person who had instructed him before he came had told him to leave a good impression. For the next few people, Zichen responded with the same words. Just as he had expected, the people who came were all interested in Shania, and they couldn't open up the situation at Shania. A few days passed. Zichen's improvement every day could be said to be rapid. However, after this rapid improvement, the consumption of the Death Soul Stone was rapid. The third stone was used up in just a few days. Zichen's decomposition method was extremely taxing, but his improvement was also very obvious. In fact, after Zichen was no longer targeted, he would even take out the Death Soul Stone and refine it in front of everyone when he was exhausted. At that time, everyone's eyes lit up. They were very envious. Zichen decomposed more than 200 Death Soul Stones every day. This had already surpassed the supervisor at that time. However, Zichen still did not break through. This puzzled many people, especially Butterball. On this day, when Zichen came to the operation room, he did not see Butterball. This surprised him. After all, Butterball never skipped work. Half an hour later, everyone arrived and began their busy day. Chapter 3973. Butterball's words were like a clap of thunder, exploding in the operation room. The originally noisy surroundings instantly became quiet. Everyone put down the boning knives in their hands and turned to look at Butterball with a stunned expression. Weren't the two fairies heavily protected? How could something happen to them? At this moment, Butterball became the center of attention, and no one felt disgusted. They all wanted to hear what happened next. What did you say? Zichen looked at Butterball. Butterball panted and said, I just received news that something happened to the two fairies in the Death Canyon. Zichen's expression changed instantly, and the surroundings were in an uproar. Zichen quickly threw away his work clothes and walked out of the door. What happened? Tell me in detail. As he spoke, Zichen had already walked out of the door. Butterball had to follow. The others also dropped the work in their hands one after another and followed him out. I don't know the details. I just heard the news earlier, so I immediately came to tell you. Butterball trotted behind Zichen. No one went to rescue them? Zichen began to speed up. No one. Butterball shook his head. Zichen suddenly stopped and stared at Butterball. What did you say? No one went to rescue them? How is this possible? As far as he knew, the two women were very popular. Now that something happened, how could no one go to rescue them? Butterball said. It seems that something happened in the canyon, and no one dared to go to rescue them. Zichen began to run in the direction of the inner city. Butterball shouted. Zichen, come back. Ordinary people are not allowed to go there. Zichen didn't respond, but he didn't stop. Butterball stomped his feet and followed. The people who came later didn't stop either. Obviously, they all wanted to watch the show. There were usually guards between the inner city and the outer city, and not everyone could enter. But today, those guards were not there. Zichen rushed in, but no one stopped Butterball. So what if you went to the inner city? No one can save them. Butterball shouted from behind. Zichen, you're too impulsive. Zichen had never been to the inner city before, so he did not know who to look for. However, when he arrived, he had an idea in his mind. Before he even reached the inner city, he shouted, Yao Yi, come out! Yao Yi! Come out! Yao Yi! Come out! Zichen's voice rang out. He wasn't familiar with this place, but he was very familiar with Yao Yi of the 10 Greats. And the only one that Zichen could name was Yao Yi. How dare you! It was Shingui. He had just heard the news and was about to go to the city wall to take a look when he heard Zichen's shout. He angrily rebuked. This is the inner city. Who let you in? Tell me where Yao Yi is. Or die. Zichen quickly rushed forward. Before Shingui could react, he grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up. Zichen, you're courting death. Put me down! Shingui roared angrily. But in the next moment, his voice came to an abrupt halt. He felt a cold sensation coming from his neck. It was the boning knife that Zichen had casually picked up before he arrived. At this moment, it was flashing with a sharp light. "If you don't speak, you'll die!" Zichen's eyes were extremely cold. This time, they were filled with killing intent. Butterball, who had been following behind, jumped in fright. He immediately stepped forward and said, "Zichen, don't be rash. The rules here." Zichen interrupted Butterball. "The current rules are useless to me. Life or death. You can choose one now." At this moment, Zichen was filled with murderous intent. Shingui, who was an Earth soul, was shocked to discover that his strength seemed to be restricted. He actually felt a long-lost fear. This shouldn't have happened. He was an Earth soul who had been on the battlefield. How could he be frightened by a mere human soul? However, his body started to tremble uncontrollably. Then, he subconsciously looked in a certain direction. There was a tall city wall there. At the moment, there were many people standing on top of it. Zichen threw Shingui aside and rushed towards the city wall. Butterball glanced at Shingui and suppressed the shock in his heart. He gritted his teeth and followed Luo Yunyang. He didn't care about the rules. He had to keep an eye on Zichen. He couldn't let anything happen to him. "Yao Yi, get the hell out here!" Before they even got close to the city wall, Zichen's angry roar rang out again, attracting the attention of many people. When these people discovered that the one making a fuss was actually a human soul realm expert, their expressions became strange. "Zichen, you're courting death!" Sure enough, Yao Yi, who heard the voice, shouted angrily. He was on top of the tall city wall. There were many young elites standing around Yao Yi. When they saw the enraged Yao Yi, their expressions changed. They had heard of Zichen's name before. They didn't expect that he would dare to come here and treat Yao Yi in such a way. Zichen didn't slow down and quickly climbed up the city wall. He was filled with killing intent. Wherever he passed, those Earth souls had strange looks in their eyes and made way for him. Zichen came in front of Yao Yi and pointed his boning knife at him. "Speak, did you do it?" Yao Yi glared at Zichen. "Are you crazy?" Zichen said coldly. "Did you set this up?" Yao Yi cursed angrily. "That was a blood storm. It was unpredictable. How could I be so capable?" The others were a little surprised because Yao Yi, one of the 10 elites, was clearly stunned. Otherwise, he wouldn't have explained himself in such a flustered and exasperated manner. "Then why didn't you save him?" Zichen asked again. His eyes were extremely cold. Yao Yi said angrily. "That's a death storm. There's not even a 10% chance of survival. Who would dare to go in? If you don't believe me, take a look for yourself." Yao Yi pointed to the other side of the city wall. Zichen turned his head and saw countless blood clouds rolling. Below the blood clouds was an endless canyon. The canyon was also blood red, as if it was dyed with blood. Zichen didn't notice it before, but when he noticed the blood-red canyon, a terrifying pressure hit him and landed on his body. His face instantly paled. His heart palpitated and his organs seemed to be displaced. This was the Death Canyon. Zichen felt his heartbeat accelerate and fear emerged in his heart. It was as if looking at this place was a great fear. "If you have the ability, go save him," Yao Yi said sarcastically when he saw Zichen's pale face. The surrounding people also sneered. This human soul was still too young. However, there were also some people who began to suspect the relationship between the two fairies and Zichen, who was acting so angrily. Zichen turned to look at Yao Yi. He had calmed down a lot. "Where's Wan He?" Wan He was the captain the moment he arrived. He was very famous, but Zichen dared to call him by his name. This made some people's expressions change slightly. "He's also inside," Yao Yi said. "No one went to save him?" Zichen asked again. Yao Yi shook his head and said helplessly. "No one dared to go." "What about the heavenly souls? They didn't go either?" "That death storm is strange. The higher the cultivation level, the faster you die. If the Earth Soul Realm has a chance of survival, then the Heavenly Soul Realm will definitely die. Chapter 3974. As soon as he said that, everyone's face changed. Yao Yi looked at Zichen in disbelief. What did you say? Zichen said seriously. Now go in and save her. Save her, and I will convince Shania to let her marry you. Are you crazy? Yao Yi lost his voice. Zichen, you're talking nonsense. Zichen said indifferently. Now I'm more clear-headed than ever. In short, do you want to go or not? Yao Yi shook his head and said with a wry smile. If I go, it'll just be one more person dying. He didn't trust Zichen, and even if he did, he wouldn't take the risk. He wouldn't do such an obvious thing, and even if he was willing, Immortal Tianju wouldn't agree. His life was very precious. Are you sure? Zichen stared at Yao Yi. You want to give up? Yao Yi said in a deep voice. I'm not afraid of death, and I can die in the canyon at any time, but I won't die in vain. Zichen, this death storm is absolutely beyond imagination. His words were righteous. Zichen turned his head and looked at the other young people. You're also elites, right? Whoever can save her, I can convince Shania to let her marry him. Butterball, who had been following behind Zichen, was shocked by Zichen's words. Not only could he pass a message to Fairy Lan, but he could also make the decision for Fairy Shania. What was the relationship between Zichen and Shania? Just when Butterball was doubting the relationship between the two, he heard mocking voices coming from all around. You're in the human soul realm, but you're talking big. You can even make the decision for Fairy Shania. But whether you're talking big or making empty promises, you've come to the wrong place to find the wrong person. No one here is afraid of death, but we won't die in vain. That's right. Entering the canyon at this time is equivalent to courting death. I already firmly believe in fighting the soul-devouring clan. It is impossible for me to throw my life away for nothing. The surrounding people all spoke up, but those elites didn't say anything. However, their intentions were already clear. Zichen nodded and said, Good, very good. You gave it up on your own accord. I hope that from now on, none of you will pester Shania. After that, Zichen stared at Yao Yi and asked, Where is the entrance? What? Yao Yi was stunned. Where is the entrance to the canyon? You may have given up on this opportunity, but I won't, Zichen said coldly. Are you crazy? Do you want to die? Yao Yi widened his eyes and looked at Zichen in disbelief. We'll only know if he's courting death after we go in. Zichen looked around. Who can tell me where the entrance is? Young man, we can understand your feelings for saving people, and we admire you very much. However, with your cultivation level, you would have died if you entered the Death Canyon under normal circumstances, not to mention now. An old man who appeared on the city wall said, Moreover, we have rules here. Human souls are not allowed to enter the battlefield. Seeing this, Butterball gritted his teeth and turned to run. Rules are dead, but people are alive, Zichen said coldly. I have nothing to say if you don't want to save people. Now I'm going to save people. I hope you won't stop me. The old man continued. Young man, in this place, rules are greater than heaven. Zichen stared at the old man. What about human lives? What are human lives worth? Zichen pointed at the canyon and said angrily, If we go in now, we might be able to save them. If we continue to talk nonsense here, it will be too late. The old man still shook his head and said, Young man, I'm doing this for your own good. As the saying goes, where there is life, there is hope. Preserve your strength. After you advance, you can avenge them and kill more soul-devouring clan members. If you go in now, only death will await you. Zichen said word by word. Even if I die, I'll be happy. That's my life. I'll use it however I want to. Tell me, how do I go in? The old man said. Rules are not to be broken. Zichen said angrily. Old man, not only are you blind, you're still so stubborn. The old man narrowed his eyes and a cold intent appeared. The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. The expressions of the surrounding people became interesting one after another. Even the expressions of the elites changed slightly. Zichen, a human soul, really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He dared to scold the old man in front of everyone. Was he tired of living? What, you want to slap me to death, right? You don't have to do it. Just throw me into the canyon. Zichen said angrily. Life and death is up to fate. The old man shook his head. Old man, are you going to let me in or not? Zichen stared at the old man fiercely. The old man shook his head again. He would not let Zichen in. Zichen had no choice. He could not really beat the old man up. Moreover, from the changes in the expressions of the others, he sensed that he might not be able to beat the old man. Suddenly, Zichen had an idea. He said, What about this? I'll use a chance to retreat in exchange for a chance to advance. Zichen took out a token. It was given to him by the old gatekeeper when he came here. He said that it would give him a chance to retreat. Right now, Zichen had no use for the opportunity to retreat. He hoped that it could help him advance once. This is a battle order. The moment they saw the token in Zichen's hand, many people's expressions changed. They were very surprised. Only some special general realm cultivators could have this token. How did Zichen, a human soul, get it? Yao Yi looked at Zichen. After Zichen told him some things last time, he found that Zichen's vision was very unique. He did not expect Lin Fan to take out another battle order today. Even he had only received the battle badge when he became one of the 10 elites. There was surprise in the old man's eyes as he asked, Where did you get this token? You don't have to worry about that. I didn't steal it. Let me ask you, does it work? Can you let me in? Zichen looked at the old man with the token in his hand. He did not want to waste any more time. He was very anxious. If you have this token, you can, the old man said after a slight hesitation. Zichen sneered. You said that the rules can't be broken. The old man's expression did not change when he was mocked. Zichen gave the token to the old man. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and open the entrance. Zichen. A voice suddenly came from behind. Zichen turned around and saw Di Wu. Di Wu was walking towards him. You don't have to stop me. You can't stop me, Zichen said. Di Wu came forward and patted Zichen's shoulder. I'm not here to stop you. Instead, I admire your courage. This is for you. I hope it can bring you good luck. There was a green gourd in Di Wu's hand. It looked like it was carved out of jade. There were a few cracks on the surface of the gourd, which affected its beauty. Take it. It might be useful. Di Wu did not allow any explanation and stuffed it into Zichen's hand. Zichen was stunned. He did not have a bad impression of Di Wu. After all, everything was done by Yao Yi. Although Yao Yi gave him pressure, it was not over the limit. He did not expect Di Wu to give him something at this moment. I made it. I was almost too late. At this moment, Butterball's voice came from behind. Chapter 3975. A black beast stood in front of Butterball. Butterball rode it here. The strange beast looked like the legendary Qilin beast, but there was a single horn on its head that curved towards the sky. It was covered with thick black hair and looked mighty and ferocious. It was not an ordinary beast. Zichen had never seen such a beast, not even in the Saint Spirit realm. The expressions of the surrounding people changed when they saw the exotic beast. One of them exclaimed, Is this the Xieji beast in the Death Canyon? Yao Ye's gaze changed as he stared at Butterball. Of course, he knew Butterball. More than half of the people in the Earth Soul realm knew Butterball. He was an existence that no one liked. He had endless work every day and was very timid. When Yao Yi entered the operation room for the first time, Butterball was squatting in the corner to deal with the internal organs of the beast. After he advanced and left, Butterball was still there. However, such an inconspicuous fat man had actually brought a Xieji beast with him. Zichen also saw the beast's extraordinariness, and his expression changed. Butterball walked forward with a smug and proud face. At this moment, he was the center of attention and the source of shock. The Xieji beast followed behind him like the most obedient pet. I told you before that my work is extraordinary. You just didn't believe me. Butterball patted the Xieji beast's head and said, I found it when I was dealing with the internal organs. It was still in the womb, so I raised it. It's called Fatty. What do you think? Isn't the name very domineering? Zichen was speechless. Come, Fatty. This is the Zichen I told you about. He has never despised me and is the first one to treat me as a friend. Butterball put his face on the Xieji beast's head and said, Zichen is going to the Death Canyon. It's very dangerous there. I hope you can help him. The Xieji nodded in a very human-like manner. The others in the surroundings were extremely shocked. It was common knowledge that the Xieji beasts were the descendants of the Xieji divine beast. All of them were unruly, bloodthirsty, and brutal. Moreover, their combat strength was extremely formidable. In history, the number of Heichi beasts killed was very limited. It was said that the most recent time was hundreds of years ago, when a soul hunter in the general realm killed one. He didn't expect someone to have such a pet. At this moment, countless people looked at Fatty with gazes filled with envy. Zichen shook her head and said, I'll go in alone. Butterball said, Take Fatty with you. You'll have a better chance of survival. Looking at Fatty, Butterball sighed and said, It originally belonged to the canyon. It's a pity that I, a human soul, am unable to make a breakthrough, so I can't bring it back to its hometown to take a look. This time, I'm counting on you. Fatty came in front of Zichen and bent his front legs, signaling for Zichen to come up. Butterball said, As a friend, I can only help you this much. Time was running out, so Zichen didn't delay any longer. He turned over and got on Fatty's back. Thank you, Butterball. Butterball said loudly, My name is not Butterball. My real name is White Bear Rue. If you can come back alive, I'll treat you to a drink. I'll try my best. Zichen walked forward. The old man who accepted the token had already opened a passage for Zichen. He looked at the Xieji beast under Zichen with a complicated expression. He seemed to feel sorry for it, just like the others. Zichen, do you mean what you said? Butterball suddenly shouted. What? Zichen turned his head in confusion. I'll go to the canyon with you. Are you willing to let Shania Fairy marry me? Butterball, who had always been timid, plucked up his courage and asked eagerly. A toad wants to eat a swan's meat. Go away! I'll deal with you when I come back. Those were Zichen's last words. Fatty brought him into the passage. He entered the canyon and went to the dangerous area with his human soul realm. The entire city wall was extremely quiet. No one knew what they were thinking about. The canyon was filled with blood clouds. They couldn't see the people below. Perhaps Zichen was already dead. Many people felt sorry for him. After all, Zichen's death wasn't a big deal. What they felt sorry for was the Xieji beast. Compared to leaving this time, it was impossible for him to come back. Human soul realm wasn't allowed to enter this place. Hence, after Zichen disappeared, Butterball left in a hurry. Diwu took a look at the canyon and turned to leave. The old man looked at Diwu and said, I thought you would never come to this place. Diwu said, Actually, your data is wrong. For the past 1,000 years, the survival rate of saving people in the death storm was 100% and not 10% as you said. The old man sighed and recalled the scene back then. A general realm risked his life to enter the death storm and brought back his comrade who had gone through fire and water with him. Although he returned successfully, that general realm's realm dropped permanently. He had no choice but to leave the city wall and return to the outer city. Hearing their conversation, Yao Ye's expression changed again. There were many people who knew Diwu, but only a few knew about his past. The old man guarding the gate was making hand seals with his eyes wide open because he couldn't see through the scene. However, there seemed to be a force that stopped him from deducing. Tianju, what's going on? The old man guarding the gate who got nothing asked. I'm not sure, there's a force that's hiding the mystery. Sage Tianju said. You can't see it too? If I didn't guess wrongly, that battle order should be yours. The old man guarding the gate said. It's mine, but I still got nothing from deducing with the battle order. Could it be that someone schemed against us? Don't drag me into this. What does it have to do with me? Besides, who can interfere with a heavenly soul realm? Is it just a coincidence? The old man guarding the gate muttered. I just happened to give him a battle order and then helped him. What you should be concerned about now isn't this matter, but why the divine soul goddess is in the death storm. Asterisk 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 asterisk. After entering the bloody canyon, the heart-palpitating feeling became even more intense. Just like when he first came here, the pressure from the canyon made Zichen's breathing difficult. There was a reason why everyone didn't let him in. Under normal circumstances, a human soul realm expert might not be able to survive here, and under the death storm, there was no chance of survival. Just as Zichen's body couldn't withstand the terrifying pressure, the spirit robe on his body suddenly glowed. There was a faint light that filled his body, and the heart-palpitating feeling seemed to have disappeared a little. Fatty, who was trembling slightly, also glowed and returned to normal. The canyon was huge, and one couldn't see the end of it. It was filled with blood clouds, and nothing could be seen. Chapter 3976. The blood cloud pressed down, and a strong pressure filled the surroundings. The spirit robe helped Zichen adapt a little. Otherwise, Zichen would not be able to move an inch. Looking around, he could not tell the direction at all. It was almost impossible to find someone in such a situation. Come out and take a look, Zichen said. A ray of light appeared, and it was the ghost that he had not seen for a long time. It was the reason why Zichen came here. Otherwise, how could Zichen, who had never been here before, find them? The pressure here seemed to be nothing to the ghost, and it was not affected at all. At this moment, it was looking around, trying to sense the familiar aura. It was the first time Fatty came to the canyon, and it was very curious about everything around it. However, its eyes were also vigilant. Suddenly, the ghost stretched out its little paw and pointed in a direction. It had already found something. Fatty, let's go. Zichen gently patted Fatty's head, and Fatty began to move forward. The wind whistled around, and sand and stones flew, but Fatty walked as if it was flat ground. Its advantage in this place was gradually revealed. Zichen, who was moving forward, found that his cultivation method suddenly began to operate, and there seemed to be a strange force that entered his body. It was like refining the Death Soul Stone. This made Zichen's expression change, and he was a little stunned and a little surprised. At this moment, a ray of light appeared beside Zichen. It was the little fairy that he brought out from the bamboo sea world of the Fang family. After it appeared, it opened its mouth and took a deep breath. When the air was sucked into its stomach became round. The ghost was not surprised by the little fairy's appearance, and it was still leading the way for Zichen. Zichen asked, "Why did you come out?" "The power here is helpful to me." The little fairy swallowed the air around it. Usually, it only ate blue crystal coins or blue astral coins. It was the first time it could swallow air. Suddenly, a strong sense of danger appeared in Zichen's heart, and Fatty, who was under him, also stopped in an instant. A ray of light appeared from the hurricane ahead, heading straight for Zichen. It was a strange beast that was attacking Zichen. Zichen did not expect that an exotic beast would still be able to survive such a storm. He was a little surprised, but he did not panic in the face of danger. The bone-paring knife in his hand flashed as he stabbed forward. The moment he made contact with the exotic beast, the blade in his hand turned and pierced into the exotic beast's body. The next moment, saber light flashed. It was like dissecting exotic beasts in the control room. He had practiced this action countless times. Blood spurted out, and the strange beast that had launched the sneak attack was cut into a dozen pieces, falling to the sides. This scene happened extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, life and death had been decided. Zichen continued to pat Fatty's head, and Fatty continued to move forward. But this time, it was obviously more careful. The boning knife was still dripping with blood. This was Zichen's only weapon for self-defense. As for the black stick that he had refined before, Zichen did not know if it was because it did not have any power, but he could not use it for the time being. After that sneak attack, Zichen had become more careful. The fairy seemed to have eaten its fill. After flying around Zichen once, it disappeared. Yugui was still showing the way, but it was no longer speaking to Zichen, but to Fatty. The two beasts seemed to have a unique way of communicating. Zichen looked around. At this moment, he could no longer see the scene 20 feet away. Zichen, who was moving forward, did not know that a blood shadow was silently following him at this moment. This blood shadow seemed to have merged with the surrounding blood clouds, and no one could discover it. Only the Soul Devourer clan and the Blood Soul clan dared to move forward in the storm of death. Their innate fighting strength was not strong, but once they entered the storm of death, it was as if they had become the masters. The Soul Hunters never moved forward in the storm of death. In addition to the horror of the storm itself, the Blood Soul clan often appeared in the storm, which was another main reason. The existence hidden in the dark had been silently watching Zichen, and it was also calculating in its heart. This Soul Hunter had not even awakened his power, so he should not be here. This made it feel strange, and it did not act rashly. What's more, the other party was riding an extremely rare Shieji beast, which made it even more afraid to let its guard down. So, it was observing and waiting for the right time. It had seen the other party's attack earlier, and it was very careful. Although it killed an exotic beast, the other party did not use the power of a soul hunter. It wanted to find out the other party's background. Not long after, the second exotic beast launched an attack at the soul hunter. This time, it attacked from behind. The soul hunter immediately leaped into the air, turned his body in midair, and quickly attacked with his knife. The knife flashed. Life and death were decided again. Again, it did not use any energy, only brute force and skill. The Shieji beast seemed to be in its infancy, and its perception was not sharp enough to detect danger in advance. That strange little beast seemed to only be able to sense the direction, and there was no danger. The soul hunter's brute force was nothing to be afraid of. Blood Shadow calculated the other party's strength in his heart. However, for the sake of safety, he still did not dare to move forward rashly. The third exotic beast appeared, and it was the third test. The result was the same. This made Blood Shadow feel relieved. I can definitely kill it in one hit. After 3 observations, he came to a conclusion and was ready to take action. Because even he couldn't get used to the deeper parts of the cave. 3 sneak attacks, which made Zichen even more nervous, because in this storm, Fatty's speed had also decreased, but the exotic beast seemed to be unaffected. At this moment, the feeling of danger appeared again. Again! Zichen shouted and immediately jumped up, then turned around and attacked with his knife. It was the 4th exotic beast. Just as Zichen's knife landed on the other party's body, another sense of danger appeared. This time, it was a life and death crisis. There seemed to be a demon standing behind him. By the time Zichen sensed the abnormality, it was already too late. A blood-colored machete that looked like a cloud of blood appeared behind Zichen and went straight for his neck, as if it wanted to cut off Zichen's head directly. At this time, Zichen was already in the air, and he had launched an attack on the exotic beast, so he could not resolve the crisis behind him at all. He was very puzzled and shocked that there was an enemy in such a terrifying place. At the same time, he was in despair, because he was powerless to stop it. The machete approached and slashed at Zichen's neck. However, just as it was about to touch Zichen's skin, a dazzling light suddenly erupted from Zichen's body. This light turned into a solid protective light, protecting Zichen in it. Chapter 3977. Blood Shadow's expression changed slightly when his sure kill attack was blocked. The defense in front of him didn't seem to be strong. He was prepared to break through the defense and kill. Light shone, and the power contained in the short knife became even more terrifying. At this moment, the gourd in Zichen's arms suddenly flew into the air. The gourd opened on its own, and a misty light sprayed out from it. Within the light, there was a dazzling flash of light. Pff. Blood Shadow retreated quickly and hid in the blood clouds again. Zichen came back to his senses and caught the falling gourd. The gourd's mouth was already sealed. There were a few more cracks on it. Other than fear, he also felt lucky and grateful. If it wasn't for Diwu's gift, he would have been beheaded. Yugui and Fatty's expressions changed as well. Continue, but we have to be careful. Zichen didn't expect the Soul Eater clan to exist in such a harsh environment. Zichen, who had just escaped with his life, constantly warned himself to be careful. He held the gourd tightly in his left hand and the boning knife in his right. Yugui led the way for Fatty. Zichen lowered his head and saw the bloodstains on the ground. They were left behind by the Soul Eater clan. After hesitating for a while, he signaled Fatty to follow the bloodstains. He glanced at the gourd. Perhaps there was a chance to kill the other party. Fatty, who was moving forward, was changing his direction. After walking for more than 10 feet, Zichen changed his mind and continued to move forward. Because he thought of the sneak attacks from the mutated beasts. They should have been done by the other party. If the other party wanted to avoid him, he just had to find another mutated beast and make it bleed. While moving forward, Zichen's cultivation technique was still circulating. His body seemed to have become a funnel, and the energy of heaven and earth from all directions couldn't be filled up no matter what. That blood shadow appeared once again, but when it looked at Zichen, there was obvious fear in its eyes. But there was also passion. A soul hunter who wasn't qualified to come here had a body full of treasures. How could it not be moved? He was determined to get the Xieji beast. The little black beast was also extraordinary. There was also the elf that had appeared and disappeared before, and the gourd that could protect its owner by itself. When he thought of the gourd, he touched his chest. The light from before had directly pierced through his heart, almost taking his life. If the other party was a general-level soul hunter with such a precious treasure, he might have run away long ago. However, the other party was a soul hunter who was not qualified to come to this battlefield. He had plenty of ways to kill the other party. He stealthily concealed himself, then retreated and disappeared. A moment later, Zichen was besieged by a group of beasts and was in danger. The gourd did not activate on its own. A smile appeared at the corner of Blood Shadow's mouth. Diwu and Butterball left the city wall. This wasn't a place for human soul realm experts to stay. The other Earth soul realm experts were still standing there. Many of them were looking at the canyon. Unlike before, they couldn't see anything under the storm. Yao Yi stood there in a daze. In his mind, he recalled what Zichen had said earlier. It was about Shanya. At that time, he didn't hesitate at all and directly rejected her. Was he afraid of death? Or did he dislike her? What was the relationship between Zichen and Shanya? Why was she willing to risk her life to save him? Ripples appeared in his heart. The heavenly soul realm old man who had stopped Zichen earlier stood not far away. He had deliberately deduced once, but he couldn't sense anything. It seemed that this matter was very strange. Why was the divine soul goddess trapped in the storm? Suddenly, a ray of light appeared on the city wall and turned into an old man. The old man wore a blue robe and smiled as he looked at the canyon. He had white hair and a youthful face, like an immortal in the mortal world. The heavenly soul realm experts on the city wall couldn't help but change their expressions when they saw the blue-robed old man. The blue-robed old man smiled and said, "I'm here to wait for an old friend." The surrounding Earth soul realm experts also noticed this scene, but they didn't know this old man. Old friend? The heavenly soul realm experts' eyes became sharp. Could it be that they want to take advantage of the storm to do something? The blue-robed old man smiled and said, "No, it's a real old friend this time." The heavenly soul realm old man was somewhat puzzled. At the same time, the gatekeeper old man and spiritual master Tianju were also puzzled. Zichen had already jumped down from the Xieji beast's back. The spirit robe on his body was stained with blood. Although it hadn't been torn, its luster had dimmed a lot. The number of strange beasts that had died under Zichen's saber had exceeded 10, but there were still more than 10 strange beasts that pounced at him. There were more than 10 bloody marks on the Xieji beast's body. It was also fighting a difficult battle. Yugui had swallowed 2 strange beasts, but he felt full. The black shadow in the dark was extremely excited because he found that the other party still had a treasure on him. It was the glowing spirit robe that could withstand many attacks. But now, the spirit robe seemed to be unable to withstand the attacks, and the light could disappear at any time. The gourd was held tightly by the other party, but it hadn't been activated, which made him even more satisfied. Just to be on the safe side, he still didn't take the initiative to attack, but waiting for the other party to be exhausted. The strange beasts died one after another, but Zichen's saber was still very stable. This made the blood shadow very shocked. The other party's endurance was too good. So, he went to chase some strange beasts over. Finally, after Zichen was exhausted, he took out his scimitar. He didn't get close, but threw it far away. Moreover, it wasn't Zichen's vital part. Through the previous battle, he already had a certain understanding of the characteristics of the gourd. As long as it wasn't a fatal attack, the gourd wouldn't activate on its own. The scimitar took advantage of Zichen's unpreparedness and attacked his waist. The blood shadow stared straight ahead and saw the soul hunter's figure stagger, and the scimitar flew back. Sure enough, it hit. The light of the spirit robe on the soul hunter's body became dimmer. Retracting the scimitar, the blood shadow changed direction and attacked from the second direction. It hit again. 3 times in a row, the last bit of light on the stumbling Zichen's spirit robe extinguished. The protective effect disappeared, and it turned into an ordinary token. The blood shadow sneered. Next, the other party was waiting to be torn apart by the strange beasts. Suddenly, the violent spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the surroundings gathered crazily towards Zichen. His body seemed to have turned into a huge vortex, and endless energy entered his body. Just as the blood shadow appeared in shock, a powerful aura erupted from Zichen's body. Zichen's entire body shone, and a straight pillar of lightning tore apart the blood clouds, soaring into the sky and disappearing into the sky. On the city walls of Bloody Battle City, everyone saw a dazzling bolt of lightning pierce through the blood cloud storm, like a sword of light, and disappear into the sky of the canyon. Chapter 3978. On the city wall, there was an uproar as discussions broke out. No one knew what had happened in the canyon. Why would a bolt of lightning break through the blood clouds? The blue-robed old man seemed to know the reason, and he laughed heartily. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared. The heavenly soul old man next to him was confused. Some people guessed that the phenomenon might have been caused by Zichen, who had just entered, but they immediately dispelled this unrealistic guess. That was not a place for humans. Zichen should have died a long time ago. Blood Shadow's eyes widened as he looked ahead in shock. He knew what had happened, but he couldn't believe it. He saw Soul Hunter break through. There were many people who broke through, but it was the first time he saw such a big commotion. The aura of an Earth soul exploded out just like that. He didn't go into seclusion or cultivate, but he broke through so easily while fighting. And it was when death was about to appear. Could it be that he had stimulated his potential? But he was already an Earth soul, so how could he stimulate his potential? This was too abnormal. But the truth was right in front of him. From the moment Zichen arrived here, the dark ghost soul devouring technique had been operating on its own, absorbing the energy between heaven and earth to replenish his body. After the spirit robe's power was exhausted and the protection ended, Zichen's body was like seawater that suddenly poured in from all directions. Under normal circumstances, he would have died on the spot because he couldn't withstand the energy pressure from the canyon at all. At this moment, Zichen broke through. An Earth Soul aura was released from his body, and the energy that was about to burst his body was all absorbed. And it was far from enough. The power that had been suppressed by the rules here was released at this moment. Soul power returned. Zichen's sharp senses returned, and they were even clearer. He could sense the black soul weapon that he couldn't sense or use before. The strange beasts stopped one after another. Their bodies trembled under Zichen's powerful aura, and they didn't dare to attack at all. Yugui and Fatty also turned to look at Zichen. The two beasts were stunned. Under the envelopment of the aura of the Earth Soul stage, the pressure here was nothing to Zichen. When his sharp senses returned, he sensed Blood Shadow's location. With a flicker, Zichen disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already behind Blood Shadow with a long rod in his hand. Its quality was much higher than the boning knife. Blood Shadow seemed to have sensed the danger behind him. The scimitar in his hand quickly slashed backward. He turned around, intending to retreat and escape. At this moment, his heart was filled with fear. Not only did the other party sense his location, his speed was also extremely fast. If this was not his home ground, he would not have been able to react at all. However, even though Crimson Shadow managed to react, it would still be very difficult for him to escape from Zichen. The long staff smashed down with a whistling sound that seemed to cover up the sound of the storm around them. Bang! The high-quality saber shattered. Then, the staff smashed down and landed on the scarlet figure's chest. This scene happened too quickly, and he couldn't dodge at all. Coughing up blood, Blood Shadow landed on the ground and turned to run. At this moment, he was really scared out of his wits. This person who had just broken through to the human soul realm seemed to have become so powerful and terrifying without even familiarizing himself with the realm. Zichen looked at the fleeing figure and did not immediately give chase. With a flash of light in his hand, he put away the black soul weapon and replaced it with an unfathomable mystery. He drew a line. A ray of light blossoming with lightning appeared from the tip of the brush. It was like a ray of light that separated heaven and earth. It cut through the blood clouds and followed Blood Shadow out. Blood Shadow, who had escaped more than 300 meters away, still had lingering fear. At the same time, he was also glad that the other party did not chase after him. However, in the next moment, his expression changed drastically as he turned around. Light flashed in front of his eyes and disappeared. All the strength in his body seemed to have been sucked out, and he instantly lost control of his body. In his gradually blurring vision, the human soul who had just broken through to the human soul realm appeared with two beasts. The other party did not walk quickly, but wherever he passed, the blood clouds would avoid him. He looked at the soul hunter and opened his mouth, but before he could say a word, his vision turned black. Zichen came closer and looked at the dead soul devourer. In the past, it was extremely difficult for him to kill an earth soul, but with his breakthrough, everything was solved. He was ready to leave this place, but after taking 2 steps he stopped. Because Yugei did not leave, and Zichen also thought of something. Sure enough, after turning over the corpse, Zichen saw a death soul stone, but it was not the same as the one he usually refined. This soul stone was flowing with blood-red light, like an impure bloodstone. After Zichen put away the death soul stone, Yugei, who had not moved, swallowed the corpse in one gulp. Fatty grinned, as if he was a little regretful. Let's go and find them. Looking at Yugei with a round belly, Zichen said. Yugei jumped onto Fatty's back and continued to guide Zichen. Zichen followed beside Fatty. The pressure here was nothing to him, and he could walk easily, so he did not ride Fatty. At the same time, Zichen could not bear to see Fatty with so many wounds on his body. After walking for a full 2 hours, the storms they encountered became stronger and stronger. Just as Zichen wondered if Yugei had found the wrong place, he finally sensed a familiar blade intent. It was Wan He's blade intent. It's just ahead. Zichen's expression changed, and he sped up. With the shield and staff in hand, Zichen was ready for a big battle. Just as he was about to approach, Zichen saw a huge light barrier that was completely formed by saber intent. Around the light barrier, there were numerous black figures that continuously attacked the light barrier. In the blade intent light shield, Wan He stood straight in front, while Shanya and Lan Gumeng stood behind him, channeling power to him. There were also two people lying on the ground, seemingly unconscious. At this moment, Wan He's blade intent protection became unstable, as if it could break at any time. The situation was not good. Buzz! Zichen gathered power, and the patterns on the black staff lit up instantly. This time, it was almost completely bright, and the dazzling golden light pierced through the blood cloud. Zichen held the staff and smashed down, and a golden staff shadow appeared. The blood cloud rolled violently and was shattered by the golden staff shadow. The staff shadow moved forward and fell on the black shadows. In an instant, the sound of flesh exploding rang out, and countless blood rain fell from the sky, dyeing the blade intent protection red. Those were not the soul-devouring clan, but some kind of exotic beast. Such a change made the three of them slightly startled, and they subconsciously turned their heads. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.